Love Letters to a House on Fire, Stories, Poems, and Ransom Notes. Written by Aaron N. Hall. Narrated by the author. Foreword. Just kidding, there's no foreword. I thought it would be funny to include a foreword to tell you that there isn't a foreword. Anyway, thanks for picking up Love Letters to a House on Fire. It's a delightfully varied collection of stories, poems, and ransom notes, but you'll see that soon enough. I hope they make you feel a spectrum of emotions, because to me, that's what storytelling is all about. I just wrote a foreword, didn't I? Ugh. Stories. Blimbo and the Cookie Tree. Blimbo twiddled his thumbs between his knees and made little eye contact with Nuck-Nuck. Nuck-Nuck, dressed to the nines, leaned back in his custom leather chair behind his mahogany desk. The desk was decorated with fine knickknacks and a gold nameplate. Morning light seeped in from a small window, giving the office a homey glow. It should have made Blimbo more comfortable. He scratched his pointy ears and smoothed out his tunic before twiddling his thumbs again. Nuck-Nuck adjusted his monocle, puffing on his cigar as he studied the paper in his hand. Blimbo gazed down at his hands, waiting. Finally, Nuck-Nuck flicked the paper onto the desk and cleared his throat. "Well, Blimbo," he said, taking another puff, "you've done a wonderful job. You're reliable, punctual, obedient. You've proven to be an exemplary warehouse employee." Blimbo perked up, and his cheeks turned pink.
"Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to my new position."
Nuck-Nuck frowned and tilted his head. Blimbo shrank into his seat.
"Sir," Blimbo continued, "you said at my last quarterly review that if my performance was acceptable, there might be a position for me in the cookie tree."
Nuck-Nuck scratched his chin.
"Did I say that?"
Blimbo nodded vigorously. Nuck-Nuck sighed, cleaning smudges from his monocle.
"Blimbo,"
Nuck-Nuck began,
"you have done a satisfactory job, but I'm afraid you're not quite ready for the tree. This is a place for leaders, visionaries. You're made of the right stuff, but you haven't shown it yet. We need more elbow grease from you, more strategy, a fresh idea."
Blimbo deflated.
"You didn't say anything about that last time," he muttered.
"Business must be agile,"
Nuck-Nuck replied.
"Circumstances change. The only thing constant in life is change, after all. You're a bright boy. I'm sure you understand."
Blimbo barely listened to the rest of the review. He replayed the memory from 3 months back when Nuck-Nuck told him there would be a place for him in the tree if he put in a positive performance over the next quarter. He swore he hadn't imagined it, but maybe he had, like all the times before.
"Well,"
Nuck-Nuck said, pushing himself up out of the chair,
"I look forward to visiting with you next quarter. Show me a golden idea, and I'll make a spot for you in the tree. You have my word."
Blimbo stood, smiled as he shook Nuck-Nuck's hand, and dragged his feet out the door. He passed Nuck-Nuck's dowdy secretary on the way out and took the spiral staircase down to the main floor. As he descended, the smell of golden cookies wafted to his nose. Chocolate chip, snickerdoodle, oatmeal raisin. Machines belched as they spat out fresh batches of cookies. Blimbo drank in their scents. They were like music to his nose. Among the machinery, the workers looked happy. They wore pointed green hats atop their heads and shoes with tiny bells that jingled as they walked. Their sharp elf ears framed happy faces, with rosy cheeks and genuine smiles. They patted each other's backs, telling fun quips as they shuffled around the bakery. Blimbo watched them and let out a heavy sigh. None of them glanced at Blimbo as he reached the bottom floor and left through the exit. As he walked outside, he blinked against the sun. A village of small huts spread out before him. Thin trails of smoke curled from narrow rock chimneys. An elf drew water from a nearby well. Another elf fastened a saddle to a mouse, teaching his son how to ride. Blimbo walked deeper into the village, but stole a look behind him. The cookie tree loomed overhead, a towering structure hollowed out decades ago by the villagers. In the treetops, above the bakery and its executive offices, were apartments where the cookie factory workers lived, safe among the branches. Blimbo frowned, tearing his eyes away, and trudged to the opposite end of the village. As he walked, he passed guards who marched with spears nearly 6 inches long. He caught a conversation between a pair of them.
"Been a while since a wolf or a fox attack, eh? Makes me wonder if we're ripe for another. Sure hope not. Watching Ermy get swallowed, I'll never get it out of me mind."
Blimbo shuddered. At the opposite end of the village, a large mound rose with a rickety wooden door. 2 elves emerged from it as Blimbo approached. They had sullen faces and pale skin, their eyes drooped and their backs were hunched. They nodded to Blimbo numbly and kept walking. Blimbo entered the mound and came to a spiral staircase. Down he went until he reached the underground warehouse. There was no delicious smell of cookies here, only the wet, earthy scent of dirt, carrots, tomatoes, celery, and broccoli. Giant, human-sized vegetables were shoved against a far wall, where elves hacked at them with pickaxes and spades. Other elves swept the fragments up, placing them in plastic trays covered with clear film. Vegetable trays, without any ranch to dip in. As Blimbo reached the bottom of the stairs, he was approached by 2 of his co-workers. One was a lanky and pimply elf named Jobel, and the other, a short and stocky elf named Grumgrum. Jobel's eyes were wide.
Did you get it?
Blimbo shook his head. Grumgrum put his hands on his short hips.
See? What did I tell you? That's how Nuck is. He promised my cousin a year ago that he'd get a spot in the tree, but only said that so my cousin would work harder. Look over there. He's still down here like the rest of us.
Jobel turned to Grumgrum.
What about Alistair? He got a job in the tree last February.
Alistair's wife is friends with the VP of Supply Chain.
Grumgrum swatted the comment away.
Connections, Jobel. Of course he'd get in the tree.
I don't know anyone who works there,
Blimbo muttered.
Impressing Nuck is my only chance. He says I need a great idea. Maybe next quarter.
Grumgrum rolled his eyes, but Jobel grinned hopefully.
I believe in you, Blimbo, he said brightly. I'm sure you'll think of something. In a way, you working in the tree would be a win for all of us, you know?
Blimbo smiled, but it was weak. For the rest of the day, he stayed at his assigned spot between 2 conveyor belts. For hours, he grabbed newly assembled vegetable trays and stuck them on a conveyor belt leading to the packaging area. A team of elves loaded vegetable trays onto a pallet, placing them in carts towed by armadillos. And that's how it was, all day, every day. Lifting trays, setting them down, lifting trays, setting them down. Blimbo let his mind wander. There wasn't much to focus on. He thought of his meeting with Nuck and the executive's broken promises. He thought of his decades working here in the veggie tray factory and living on the surface, the cold and damp, the occasional fox or wolf prowling in the night. The tree was the only way out. The warmth of the cookie bakery, the safety of the treetop apartments. It was the only way. A horn sounded, and everyone packed it in for the day. With a slow shuffle, the elves ascended the spiral staircase in a single-file line, eventually emerging onto the surface. The sun was setting, the sky splashed with warm colors. Guards lined the perimeter of their village, ready for nocturnal predators. Blimbo was grateful their huts were made of rocks and mud. It made it harder for giant teeth to bite through, but the gnawing sounds made it hard to sleep. The cookie tree stood against the sky like a giant black monolith, casting its thick shadows across the village. Blimbo tried to enjoy the cool light of the moon, but the indifferent tree served as a constant reminder of his situation. He arrived at his hut in the middle of the village and opened the door. Within, he was greeted by the smell of warm stew and the sound of a crying baby. He and his wife, Neepy, had furnished their circular hut with the necessities. A straw bed for 2, a dining table, 2 rocking chairs, a crib, and a hearth. Neepy stood at the hearth, cradling their son with one arm while stirring a pot of stew with the other. As Blimbo entered, she let the ladle down and rushed over to him. Neepy kissed him as she hiked up their child, trying to soothe his crying. Her auburn hair was braided into pigtails, falling down her shoulders, and her hazel eyes were full of anticipation. Blimbo braced himself.
Well?
She asked. Blimbo shook his head.
Not this time.
Neepy scoffed, then pouted.
That's what he said last time, and the time before. I know. What else did he say?
Blimbo shrugged.
I need a bit more elbow grease, or a big idea. We're getting closer.
Neepy's eyes narrowed.
Are we, though?
Blimbo sank into his seat at the table and covered his face with his hands.
I don't know what to do, love. I stand at the conveyor belt every day, moving vegetable trays. It doesn't exactly require strategy.
He scratched his head.
I want our son to have a better life than this. No wolves, no foxes, no underground warehouse.
The baby stopped crying. Neepy set him in his crib, wiped her hands on her apron, and served bowls of stew. They dined quietly, their spoons scraping the bottoms of their ceramic bowls. Blimbo could hardly eat. Neepy noticed. She reached out and took his hand.
Listen,
she said, bending down to meet his eyes.
Maybe it actually will be next time. If not, we could go to a different meadow. That's what we said at the last meadow 2 years ago,
Blimbo grumbled.
It's worth trying,
Neepy said.
It's not too soon to give up.
Blimbo squeezed Neepy's hand and kissed her knuckle. They finished their supper and slept, but were awakened by sounds of giant paws scampering through the village. Screams echoed in the distance. Teeth scraped on rock. Blimbo held Neepy closer, and she tried to shush the crying baby. The attack only lasted a few minutes, but it was long enough. The next morning, he went to work at the vegetable tray warehouse. 2 elves had been eaten by wolves in the night, according to whispers he heard around town. Supposedly, a bird had pooped on one of the cookie tree apartments, but the window-washing elves had it cleaned off before the sun crested the hill. Several days went by at the factory. Each day, hundreds of vegetable trays passed Blimbo on the conveyor belt. Pick one up, set one down, the same process over and over again. Frustration swirled inside him. Nuck-Nuck's words, elbow grease, a big idea, echoed between his pointy ears. One day, after lunch, Blimbo looked around the factory, studying its web of conveyor belts. They crisscrossed for hundreds of inches, with elves hustling between them, moving fragments of carrots or celery. But now Blimbo saw the belts with different eyes. After being in here for so long, the structure of the facility began to make sense. The conveyor belts connected and twisted across rows. The more Blimbo studied them, the more he realized that there were entire lengths of belt that weren't necessary. In his head, he rearranged them, structuring them so they could get trays across the floor faster. And if they could get trays done faster, they could produce more on any given day. Higher production meant more profits, right? The conveyor belts moved half an inch per second, and most lengths of conveyor belt were 8 inches long. So if he could get his hands on factory schematics, he could design a new plan that would shorten the veggie tray's journey. He suddenly realized that 8 veggie trays had piled up next to him while he was lost in thought. He hurried them down the line before his supervisor noticed. During his lunch break, Blimbo asked Fibbles, the warehouse foreman, for a copy of the building schematics. Fibbles frowned and asked what he wanted them for, and Blimbo told him. Fibbles tightened his lower lip, took a drag of his cigarette, and shrugged.
If you think you can tighten up this ship, he said, be my guest, Blimbo.
That evening, Blimbo went home with a paper roll tucked under his arm. For the next several days, Blimbo stayed up late drawing schematics on fresh pieces of parchment. He would take breaks when the baby fussed or if he craved a cup of tea. Neepy kept a kettle on the hearth for him, just in case. As the days went by, wads of balled-up parchment gathered at the foot of the table. But at last, he got it. Blimbo held up the parchment with both hands, examining it. A smile spread across his face and his eyes sparkled.
This is it, my love. This is my big idea.
Neepy planted a kiss on his cheek and draped her arms around him. Even the baby giggled. To celebrate, Neepy lit a fire, cooked up stew with extra spices, and boiled a fresh kettle of tea. Blimbo went to bed that night with a smile and a full belly. By the next week, he was back in Nuck-Nuck's office. Neepy had helped Blimbo affix a bow tie over his freshly pressed shirt so he could look crisp and clean for his presentation. Nuck-Nuck, as usual, leaned back in his leather chair and puffed on a cigar. With shaking hands, Blimbo pointed to his diagram.
Given that a vegetable tray takes over 4 minutes and 8 seconds to assemble, he explained, these changes would shorten production time by 37 seconds. That would equate to a 15% decrease in production time, and that means we can expect to sell 15% more product and increase profits by a similar margin.
Blimbo clasped his hands and straightened, waiting for Nuck-Nuck's reaction. It didn't come right away. Nuck-Nuck leaned and stared and thought. He took a long puff of his cigar before quietly nodding. There was a gleam in his eye.
My boy,
he said, pointing at the diagram with his cigar,
I believe you've just had your big idea, and it's a good one, a real good one.
Blimbo's heart leapt, but he kept himself collected. Nuck-Nuck stood from his chair.
I'll present this plan to the rest of the board, he said. If they like it, and I'm sure they will, you're going to become popular very soon.
And I'll finally have a job in the tree?
Nuck-Nuck smiled.
If this plan works out the way you say it will, I guarantee it, he winked.
Blimbo walked out of the office with a pep in his step. When he got home and told Neepy what Nuck-Nuck had said, Neepy kissed him and hugged him until Blimbo thought he would burst. It only took 2 weeks for the management in the cookie tree to reconfigure the conveyor belts in the vegetable tray factory. Everything went according to Blimbo's schematics. Every time he arrived at work and saw new additions, he smiled with pride. And as the weeks went by, his coworkers whispered with satisfaction about how much faster the work went since implementing Blimbo's big idea. Fibbles even recommended that they host a party on Blimbo's behalf. He ordered a cake to be brought in, and everybody shared it over their lunch break. They clapped Blimbo on the back, teasing him about how he'd forget all of them after moving into the cookie tree. Blimbo imagined how much better the sky-high tree apartments would be for him and his little family. A cozier place to live, free from predators, with the warm smell of fresh cookies wafting up to their door every day. At long last, he had earned it. Not soon enough, the beginning of the new quarter rolled around. Every nugget of gossip told Blimbo that the cookie tree board was ecstatic about the vegetable tray factory. In the few times he'd seen company leaders, they wore fancy new shoes and hats, bought with increased profits. It was all thanks to Blimbo. For his quarterly review, Neepy helped him dress into his nicest shirt and a bow tie. When Blimbo entered the cookie tree and ascended the stairs toward Nuck-Nuck's office, nearby employees whispered. Blimbo pretended not to notice. He swung his arms a little more and stepped with spunk. Up the staircase he went, until he arrived at Nuck-Nuck's door. He knocked, and Nuck-Nuck opened.
"My boy,"
Nuck-Nuck said, taking him by the hand and pulling him inside.
"How wonderful to see you. Ready for your quarterly review?"
I sure am, Mr. Nuck-Nuck,
Blimbo said brightly. Blimbo settled into his seat, comfortable, but not so comfortable as to appear unprofessional. Nuck-Nuck leaned back in his leather chair and adjusted his monocle, then pulled a cigar from the case on his desk.
"It's been nearly 2 months since your changes,"
Nuck-Nuck said. Blimbo waited, quiet and expectant.
"It's as you predicted," Nuck-Nuck continued. "Profits are up 13.8%. Not quite the 15 you forecast, but that'll likely develop in time. Your process is still very young. The cookie tree leadership is pleased with these developments. You should be very proud."
I am, Mr. Nuck-Nuck,
Blimbo said, nodding.
I look forward to joining the team in the tree soon.
Nuck-Nuck's smile faded. He paused before cutting the end of his cigar and lighting it.
"Yes, well, that is something I wanted to discuss."
He took a puff.
"We may potentially have to push your promotion back another quarter. Things are simply out of my hands right now."
A weight inside Blimbo dropped. His smile vanished. In a low voice, he managed to push out 2 words.
What things?
"You see," Nuck-Nuck said, "one of the executives has a nephew, a recent graduate. He has a degree in business and finance, and we feel that an opportunity in the cookie tree is just what he needs to spread his wings. He begins this coming Monday. Please forgive me for any inconvenience this causes."
Blimbo wasn't looking at Nuck-Nuck anymore. Another quarter. How many times had he heard that? Another quarter of living on the ground, enduring nights of gnawing teeth. Another quarter of working in the dark, damp factory. Another quarter of living in the shadow of the tree.
"But cheer up, my boy,"
Nuck-Nuck said.
"1 quarter will pass like that."
He snapped his fingers.
"I guarantee that if you have another strike of genius, the rest of the cookie leadership will have no choice but to promote you. Now is not the time to get discouraged."
The words were hollow. The rest of his review was a blur. Blimbo heard nothing and spoke very little. His head felt underwater. His mind wouldn't stop racing. 1 more quarter. After his review, he descended the stairs, ignoring the cookie factory workers. The smells of chocolate chips and cinnamon weren't sweet to him anymore. Closing the door behind him, he walked a few paces before turning around to look up at the tree. High above, he could see windows of apartments in the branches. Maybe their inhabitants had forgotten what it was like to live on the ground. He didn't return to work. Instead, he wandered away from the village, his mind buzzing like a hive of angry bees. His feet carried him aimlessly for hours. When the sun began to set, it was time to return home. As he walked through the door, Neepy was there to greet him, her green eyes full of anticipation. She shook his hand.
Well, you got the promotion, right?
Weakly, Blimbo shook his head. Neepy's face turned scarlet, and she stamped her foot.
Again! He did it again!
The baby started to cry. Neepy shushed him, and Blimbo sank into a seat at their table. For the rest of the evening, Neepy ranted about Nuck-Nuck and the greed of the cookie tree executives. Blimbo nodded, but for the most part, his mind wasn't there. He remembered Grum-Grum's words months prior about Nuck-Nuck and his broken promises. It was always 1 more quarter. always dangling the carrot and wielding the stick, but never getting fed. He and Neepy went to bed, but Blimbo couldn't sleep. Neepy's chest rose and fell under the covers. The baby didn't even fuss. But Blimbo remained wide awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, he felt the walls of his home closing in. His mind spun into a frenzy. It was hard to breathe. Bouncing around in front of him was an image of Nuck-Nuck, adjusting his monocle, puffing on a cigar, carefree, safe, rich, and fat. It wasn't just unfair, it was wrong. And as Blimbo held trial in his mind, he found Nuck-Nuck guilty. They were all guilty. Everyone in that tree. He got out of bed. Neepy stirred, but didn't wake. Blimbo got on his slippers and robe, grabbed a lantern, and slipped out the door. The fear of predators crossed his mind, but the mania gripped him harder. It was time to act. Time to bring the gavel down. He kept to the shadows, avoiding the gaze of patrolling guards. From the side of his house, he retrieved a wheelbarrow. Then he wheeled it to a neighbor's house and filled it with as much straw as its tray would carry. Dangling a lantern from a wheelbarrow handle, he pushed it toward the tree. The wheelbarrow's wheels squeaked in the night. He loosened his stance to appear casual for fear of curious guards. As he reached the edge of town, one of the guards stopped him.
"Evening, Blimbo. It's late. You should be inside. What's with all the straw?"
Blimbo shrugged.
"Forgot I promised to feed Tum-Tum's mice while he was out of town. Gotta do it before daybreak." "Oh," the guard said. "Well, make it quick. I'm hoping we don't see any foxes tonight, but can't be too careful." "Right then. Good night." "Good night."
After a moment, the guard muttered,
"I didn't know mice ate hay. Wait a minute. Isn't Tum-Tum's house that way?"
He turned around as Blimbo headed straight for the cookie tree. The guard bolted upright.
"Hey, stop!"
Blimbo heard him and broke into a run. He sprinted for the cookie tree, the guards in pursuit. The lantern jiggled with every step, and bits of hay trickled out from the sides of the wheelbarrow. The guards were getting closer. Sweat dripped down his face and neck as he ran. The mania fully blanketed him, commanding him to run faster, to do what must be done. Blimbo hurled his wheelbarrow, dumping its hay at the tree's base. Then he grabbed the lantern and threw it. It smashed in the middle of the hay, its dull flames spreading into a warm fire. The flames grew quickly, devouring the hay. Then they caught hold of the tree. 2 guards tackled Blimbo to the ground, and as they wrestled him down and bound him, Blimbo watched the fire. It danced as it spread upwards, swallowing the trunk with harsh heat and a blazing glow. The guards screamed for firemen, but Blimbo couldn't hear them. His eyes were wide, his mouth stretched into a crazed smile, watching his inferno bloom. The cookie tree filled the meadow with a fiery light. Even as Blimbo was hauled away, he watched the flames rise. Elves poured from their homes to see the commotion. From high in the branches, cookie tree elves parachuted from their apartments, trickling to the ground with sacks of clothes, food, and gold. Within the hour, the cookie tree was fully engulfed in flames, an unholy shrine of destruction, with black smoke curling into the air. No one cried or offered words of hope. They just watched. And down in the village jail, Blimbo put his face between the bars and laughed. One more quarter? There wouldn't be one. He wouldn't push himself for Nuck-Nuck's carrot any longer, and he'd burned away the stick. By sunrise, the tree was a black mound of ash. The village police told Blimbo that he'd stay in prison for as long as the cookie tree leadership decided. Neepy stopped by, carrying their child. She didn't do much talking. She mostly cried as Blimbo held her hand through the bars. When she left, he sat alone for a few hours. Then Nuck-Nuck himself came to visit. Nuck-Nuck was fancifully dressed as usual. His 3-piece suit had bright copper buttons, and his shoes jingled. He looked Blimbo up and down, like a pitiful specimen, and shook his head.
"You had so much promise,"
Nuck-Nuck sighed.
"Now look what you've done."
Blimbo got to his feet, fists forming at his sides, his teeth bared.
"Don't tell me I had promise. You were never going to reward me."
"You just needed to be patient, boy,"
Nuck-Nuck snapped.
"You would have joined us in time, but the entire cookie tree doesn't move on the wishes of one elf. We would have made room for you when it was prudent. We simply had other priorities."
"Like hiring a college kid?"
Blimbo spat.
"Don't insult me. They told me about you. I should have listened. You make promises you don't keep, so we all work harder, with no reward. I gave you my big idea, profits jumped up, but with no promotion. Now look."
Blimbo leaned in, grasping the bars.
"It's all gone. Your luxury apartments, your sweet little bakery, it's ashes. Now you'll know what it's like to live on the ground. You'll know what it's like for those beneath you.
Blimbo grinned devilishly, preparing to drink up Nuck-Nuck's outrage. But he wasn't given the pleasure. Nuck-Nuck only shook his head.
My boy, he said, you think we haven't prepared for this?
Blimbo's smile shrank.
Another tree across the meadow is already hollowed out, Nuck-Nuck continued. We're furnishing apartments as we speak, and we'll use the insurance payout to purchase new equipment to create stronger fireproofing measures. You haven't destroyed anything. You've only slowed us down. Things will resume as they were before. The only difference is that you won't be a free elf.
Blimbo suddenly felt hollow and sick. His shoulders drooped, and his eyes widened. He plopped to the ground. Nuck-Nuck checked his pocket watch.
Such a shame, Nuck-Nuck said dismissively. Good things come to those who wait, my boy, but now you'll never know. Enjoy your new home.
Tipping his hat to Blimbo, Nuck-Nuck left, and his footsteps faded. Blimbo sat in silent shock. Then, looking at the cell bars and walls, he wondered if the wolves could reach him. Killing Carol.
Dude, remember how after the boss battle that chest turned out to be a mimic? I thought I was toast. You thought you were toast? I only had 3 HP left.
Scott drummed his thumbs on the steering wheel while Brock and Kylie bickered in the back seat. Brock wore a cheap cape and held a pointy wizard hat in his lap. Kylie's headband was fashioned with homemade druid horns that stuck out of her red hair. "If I hadn't cast Sacred Flame," Kylie said, "we would have been wasted."
You needed my potion of healing, though, Brock said. We can debate where our success turned around, but I'm pretty sure it was my potion. I'd bet $5 on it.
Scott smiled and listened as he drove. Kylie and Brock argued as he surveyed his neighborhood, with its handsome townhomes, oak trees, and healthy lawns. Kids played in the street, retreating to the sidewalk as Scott drove by in his old sedan. Scott parked in front of his house. Daisies lined the driveway. All 3 of them got out. Kylie and Brock headed for Brock's Jeep, which was parked down the street. Neighborhood kids stared at their fantasy costumes. "Tell your mom those flowers look good," Brock said, pointing. Scott laughed. "She'll appreciate it. She wanted azaleas, but I guess the people in the neighborhood told her no. They've made a lot more rules lately. It's driving her nuts." "How come?" "I don't know, to keep property values high or something." "They look nice," Kylie piped up. "Same time next week? I'll bring the soda and you can bring the chips, Scott." "You bet," Scott replied as he walked up his driveway. "I'll catch you guys at school tomorrow." His friends waved goodbye before climbing into the Jeep and driving away. Scott walked up his porch and entered. His family's house was beautiful and clean, furnished with hardwood and neutral colors. Its floor was freshly vacuumed and surfaces dusted, with decorations carefully handpicked from local craft stores. The rich smell of lasagna drifted through the air. Scott's mother called from the kitchen. "Hey, honey," she said. "Dinner is almost ready." "Sounds good," he replied as he dropped his backpack by the door. "How was your dragon game?" "It was fun. They almost died, but pulled through. We're playing again next week." "Oh, how nice. Could you set the table, please?" Scott entered the kitchen to find his mother, Heather, at the counter, oven mitts on both hands. He sidled up to her and gave her a side hug, and she kissed him on the cheek. Bending down, she pulled the lasagna from the oven, while Scott set the table with plates, cups, and forks. As they sat down to eat, Heather brushed hair out of her pale face and pulled her chair in. The pearls around her neck rattled. "Would you say grace, sweetie?" she asked. Scott clasped his hands together and bowed his head. "Lord God, we thank you for today. Please bless this food to give us nutrients and strength. Amen." "Amen." Heather lifted her head and went to work carving slices of lasagna. "How was school today?" "It was fine." "What classes?" "Math, social studies, art, and gym." "Learn anything interesting?" "Not really." Heather's lip tightened. She nodded as she dropped lasagna on Scott's plate. "And how about the dragon game? Who did you play with?" "Brock, Kylie, and Ryan." "Do I know Kylie?" "I don't think so. She hasn't been over yet." "Are you 2 special friends?"
"What? No."
"Why not? She has a girlfriend."
"Do I know her?"
"Probably not."
"Who are her parents?"
"I don't know."
"You haven't met them yet?"
Scott leaned back in his chair. "Mom, why do you always ask me so many questions?" Heather shrugged, her eyes wide. "I'm just trying to take interest in my Scotty Waddy's life. You can't blame me. It's a mom thing." "Mom, don't call me that." Scott turned pink. Her eyes flashed.
"What, Scotty Waddy?
Scotty Waddy, Scotty Waddy, Scotty Waddy. Scott shook his head and tried not to smile. You're ridiculous. He grabbed his plate. Don't think I don't love you. I just have a lot of homework. I'll eat in my room. Yeah, you're just tired of my questions. Heather smiled and took a sip of wine, then nodded. It's okay. Get those grades, kiddo. Love you. Love you too. Scott finished his homework later that evening. By the time he stopped by Heather's room to say goodnight, she'd fallen asleep with her laptop on. A trashy reality show played on her TV. When Scott got home from school the next day, he faced her usual barrage of questions. What classes today? Spanish, woodworking, choir, and auto tech. Learn anything? Nothing good. What's tonight? Video games, probably. What are you playing? Death Soldier. Is that family friendly? Not at all. Do I need to take it away? Mom! Scott's exasperation finally got the best of him. A smirk grew across his face. What about you, Mom? What did you do today? Heather sipped her wine. Just remote work. I had a bunch of meetings. What kind of meetings? Scott fired his questions off quickly. Just meetings, Heather said. What were they about? Nothing interesting. You didn't goof off? No. Want to show me your work? Nervousness shot across Heather's eyes. No, I don't want to bore you with it. Scott frowned, confused. What was she being so protective about? Heather folded her arms. Okay, smarty pants, she said. I see what you're doing. Well, I was only trying to be a good mom and take interest in your life. You're just trying to be annoying. Scott was quiet. He felt bad, but also amused. His mom had a way of folding her arms when she was upset. It reminded him of a cartoon character. He tried not to smile for fear of getting her riled up. Heather rolled her eyes. You know I'm having a girls' night, right? Yes, ma'am. I'll be at Tara Johnson's house down the street, so not too far. Call me if you need to, but you'll probably be too busy playing your shooter game. Scott smiled. Probably. All right, don't burn the place down, okay? And if you do, the number for that is 911. She rose from the table and kissed him on the forehead. I'm going to get dressed. For being so annoying, you can do the dishes. My house, my rules. Chop chop. With a huff, Scott packed away the leftovers and scrubbed the dishes. By the time he finished, his mother came down the stairs, sporting a black dress and red lipstick. She carried a bottle of wine in one hand and pointed at Scott with her keys. You behave, she said. And have fun with your game. Love you. Be back in a few. Scott told her goodnight, and she walked out. He fell on the couch, and his game console chimed as it booted up. For the next hour, blue light lit his face as the sounds of dying zombies filled the room. As he completed mission after mission in Death Soldier, he couldn't help thinking about how defensive his mom had gotten. It was a stupid thought, but what if she really was hiding something? She'd be gone for a few hours. This would be the perfect opportunity to investigate. Pausing the game, Scott glided up the stairs. He respected himself less for it, but he snuck down the hallway until reaching his mom's master bedroom. The door was closed. He jiggled the handle. Locked. Locked? His mom never locked her door. She was hiding something, and Scott had to know what it was. He pulled out his wallet and retrieved a credit card. He'd seen this on TV before, but he didn't know if it would actually work. Slipping the card into the door jamb, he jiggled it into the lock. Click. The door swung open. He felt frozen with shame, but his curiosity was stronger. His hunch was probably nothing. He would close the door when he left, locking it behind him, and it would be as if he was never there. Amazingly, her laptop was open, but showing the lock screen. He crept over, his hands feeling the keyboard. He attempted a couple of passwords like Red Wine or Real Housewives. Both were incorrect. Another one popped into his head. Scotty Waddy. He punched it in. Ding! Success. Now he had access to Heather's entire computer. Her wallpaper was a glamour shot of a bare-chested firefighter with a square jaw and rock-hard abs. Folders were scattered all around the screen, but she'd made sure none of them obscured the firefighter. Scott studied the folder names, looking for an interesting place to start. One was named Killing Carol. Scott frowned. Ice trickled through his veins. He hesitated, but clicked on it regardless. Inside, he found maps of their neighborhood. There were also several newsletters from the Homeowners Association, dictating rules about parking, gardening, and landscaping. They were all written by a woman named Carol Smith, who'd included her picture and title, president of the HOA, at the conclusion of every newsletter. Aside from the newsletters, the folder contained pictures of Carol Smith's car, her family, where she worked, when she left and arrived for work, everything. It was as if Heather had made every possible effort to document Carol Smith's life. but the folder was named Killing Carol. Scott's eyes widened and he clapped the laptop shut. He locked his mother's door, slamming it behind him before racing downstairs to play Death Soldier. But it was impossible to focus on anything other than the folder. Killing Carol. When Heather got home later that night, Scott made sure he was in bed, his back to the door. He heard her creep up the stairs, unlock her door, and slip into her room. He didn't blink or breathe. Was she working on that folder? It wasn't any better the next morning. They ate bowls of cereal, but Scott wasn't hungry. It was hard to see through his sleep-deprived eyes. Heather scrolled through her social media, sipping coffee with extra sugar and cream. After a tense silence, she let out a little laugh.
"Look," she said, turning her phone to him. "It's a rabbit riding a turtle. Cute."
Scott gave a weak grin. Heather set down her phone and tilted her head.
"Are you okay?" she asked. "You've been quiet all morning."
Scott swallowed and gave a shallow nod.
"It's those violent video games," she sighed loudly. "I knew I shouldn't let you play those. Let me return them. We can exchange them for something more appropriate."
"Well," Scott began, "killing people in a game is better than killing people in real life." Silence crashed over the table. Heather stopped scrolling, and her fingers whitened as she gripped her coffee. Scott tried to take a calm bite of his cereal, but his hand shook. Heather laughed.
"You're not repressing any violent tendencies, are you, kiddo?"
Scott forced a grin. "No way, it's just a game."
"That's good to hear."
Heather paused again.
"I have something exciting to tell you. I'm writing a mystery novel."
"Like the ones you read at night?" Scott's brow furrowed.
"Mm-hmm,"
Heather nodded.
"It's weird getting inside the head of a serial killer. This might seem crazy, but I'm practicing by creating a fake scenario with the president of our HOA. If someone wanted to kill her, how would they plan it out? It feels icky thinking about this stuff, but a story is only as good as the villain. That's why I'm trying to be thorough."
A pressure valve inside Scott released. His hand relaxed, and he let out an easy exhale. He smiled, and it didn't feel forced. "That's a relief," he stammered, clearing his throat. "I mean, that's really interesting. Can I read it when you're done?"
"Of course."
Scott took one final bite of cereal. His phone buzzed, and he looked at the notification. "Brock is outside. I'll see you after school. Love you, Mom."
"Love you too. Learn lots."
Heather watched Scott as he left out the front door and hopped into Brock's Jeep. She didn't take her eyes off the window until the two boys pulled away and the rumbling engine faded down the street. Then her smile dropped. Heather's chair groaned as she pushed it out from the table. She took the stairs with slow steps. The floorboards creaked with each step until she reached her bedroom door. Inside, her bedroom was as she'd left it this morning. No sign of unwanted visitors. Unlike last night. Next to her desk stood a tall bookcase. She counted the number of books on the second shelf, then pulled out one of the spines. A hidden cable clicked a series of levers, and the bookcase swung open like a door. Behind it, pinned to the wall, was a diagram of their neighborhood, connected by red strings. At the center of the display was a picture of Carol Smith, president of the Homeowners Association. A red X was slashed across her face. Heather reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number and held it to her ear. It rang for a few seconds before someone answered.
"Postpone phase 1,
she said. "He knows. The azaleas will have to wait." She hung up the phone, shut the bookcase, and left. Minutes from a Storytellers support group. Hi, I'm Jimmy. Anyone else constantly looking for story ideas? Of course you are. We're all here, aren't we? It's like a switch. I can't turn it off. Heck, I was at the grocery store yesterday, just looking at a jar of peanut butter. I wondered who designed the label. You think they like their job designing peanut butter labels, or do they want something else? Maybe they dreamed of being a famous artist, now they're stuck at a desk, designing labels. What would make them do that? A sick family member to provide for? Or maybe they feel like society forced them to conform? There's a story there, and I got that from looking at a jar of peanut butter. I get at least half a dozen of those a day. If I don't write them down, where do they go? Do they disappear? That's not right. That's why I keep them in a notepad. And that's why I keep adding ideas till I go crazy. Who knows? Maybe one will become a golden story. One day. Anyway, I'm Jimmy. Thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Christina. Something really annoying happened this week.
A friend read one of my books, then texted me to say that she loved it. But she also said, I have some critiques. Excuse me? You know how I wanted to respond? Write your own damn novel. Look, I don't mind critiques, but I want them before the book is published. When it's published, it's done. Those critiques are useless. Why even bother sharing them, especially if you loved the book in the first place? I felt like a coach at a football game. My friend was saying, it's great that you're 20 points ahead, but I have some critiques. Girl, keep them to yourself. It's so easy for people to criticize when they aren't putting in the work. They haven't been running the drills and watching tape for hours every day. I have. If it's already working, let me cook. Besides, I'd like to see my friend write an 80,000-word manuscript without mistakes. She should have just stuck with, I loved it. Sorry for venting. I'm just really feeling it today. I'm Christina. I know how that feels. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm the worst kind of writer. I'm a poet. It's hard enough making money with novels or short stories, but poetry? Forget it. Like Christina, I feel like I put a lot of work in. I'll revisit a single poem for weeks, making sure all of the words are precise. The meter bounces and it feels nice. There's no wasted space. It feels right. The hardest thing is being vulnerable. I write things I feel deep down because I think that gives them power. But putting them out there is hard. What if people don't like them, or if they ridicule me? Especially about things I don't even share with friends or family. It's nerve-wracking thinking that a stranger could get a look into my soul. But poetry is cathartic. I treasure what I've written when I've struggled with self-worth or when I've tried to get through a rough time. I want to share those. Maybe other people can find connection in what I've experienced. But is it worth opening up for haters? It's a hard question. Maybe I should take comfort that very few people will read them. That's all for me. I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Dave. I ran into a high school classmate the other day at the grocery store. I said hello and we chatted. They knew I always wanted to be a writer, and when I told them I'd published a few books, they got really excited and congratulated me. Then they asked, how are they selling? I hate that question. I always feel like I'm gearing them up for disappointment. I know they're trying to be supportive, they want to see me succeed, but I don't want to let them down. Most people have no idea. Most writers don't make their full-time living writing novels. You know how most New York Times bestsellers aren't gazillionaires like people think they are? I remember seeing some famous author tell a crowd that if they're writing novels to make money, forget it. But I never really believed him. I told my friend that they're not really selling that well. He told me I should get my books in the local store, as if that'll solve the problem. You know how many books are in any bookstore? Getting my books in bookstores isn't magically going to let me quit my day job. I know that they're just trying to help. I just wish people knew more about the business. I get exhausted explaining it. Anyway, my next book should be ready to publish soon. I've been putting money aside each month to afford an editor. Wish me luck, everyone. I'm Dave. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley. I write fantasy. That's what I first started writing and something I still stick with today. And I know I'm late to the game, but I just finished reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time. I know, it's so good. When Sam carried Frodo up Mount Doom, I had to put down the book, wipe my eyes. It's such a beautiful story, deeply moving, bright, wholesome, and fully realized. And it's also a little discouraging. I don't think I'll ever write something that good. I mean, ever. Tolkien revolutionized the fantasy genre. He drew up the blueprints for what we know as fantasy 70 years later. I can never match that. How could I? It's in those moments I feel like I shouldn't even try. I know it's dumb holding myself to that standard, but I'd love to be one of the greats. How can I if I'll never be able to write anything that good? Sorry for being a bummer. And no, I'm not reading the Silmarillion. That thing is too dense. I'm Ashley.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron. I have a weird confession. I have this collection of stories and poems coming out, and I wrote a snapshot of a scene to illustrate my frustrations with being a writer. I set it up like it's a handful of writers venting to each other, but none of the characters are real. They all represent me. I just used them as vehicles to illustrate my thoughts and feelings. There are a lot of frustrations about being an author. It's tough pouring hundreds of hours into something that becomes part of your soul only for readers to casually visit it or give it a bad review or whatever. And it's really frustrating when well-intentioned people ask how it's selling and you have to tell them that it's not. But you know what? I love telling stories. It can be hard getting myself to write sometimes, but when I do, I never regret it. It's like going for a run or eating something healthy. If I write a story that resonates with just one person, that's a win. Because stories are what bring people together. We forge relationships with each other and connect with ourselves through stories. Forging those experiences is something I take a lot of pride in. Maybe I'll never be a Tolkien or a Harper Lee or a Mary Shelley. Man, I'd sure like to be, but that might never happen. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I tried to create something of value for the world, and for me, that's enough. Anyway, I'm Aaron. Thanks for listening. Lightstorm. Teva carefully packed her blankets and pillows in the shape of a body under her covers. When the guards passed her room, they would assume the bundle was her, fast asleep. In her walk-in closet, she slipped on some haggard commoner clothing she'd won from a girl on the street. She flipped its hood over her head, then tiptoed to the window and peered out. Hers was a glassless window. From so high up, there wasn't any fear of marauders or bandits breaking in. Besides, the palace of House Quirky was so heavily guarded, it would be suicide to attempt to break in anyway. The moon was brilliant over the desert. The city of Qarth, an oasis among the deserts of the Eighth Realm, stretched for miles in every direction. The palace of House Quirky stood in its middle, like a tall adobe beacon. Teva's room was on the 4th floor. Its window faced north. From her vantage point, Teva could see a firelight flickering against the buildings not far from the market. Her golden yellow eyes sharpened, and a smile graced her slender cheeks. With precision, she hopped from the window, slid down a gutter, and landed softly in a flower bed. This stealthy traversal of the palace grounds wasn't unfamiliar. It had taken several nights to memorize the guards' routes, but Teva had mastered it. She rolled behind a fountain, narrowly avoiding a guard's gaze. As their footsteps disappeared, Teva made for the courtyard walls and bounded over. She exhaled in relief after clearing the wall. Her bare feet felt the packed sand that formed streets running between adobe huts and houses. She moved swiftly, her burlap cloak flicking behind her. The source of the firelight grew louder, accompanied by shouting and laughing. As the noise grew, so did Teva's excitement. She found the scene within minutes. A crowd of teenagers were gathered in a circle, holding sacks of money and cheering. 2 girls dueled in the center, throwing fists and kicks. One had light skin, the other had dark skin matching everyone else. Their faces and knuckles were bloody, and they stood on unsteady feet, their eyes locked as they circled each other. Teva grinned when she saw them. The light-skinned girl swept out with a kick and landed a punch. The other girl fell to the ground. The light-skinned girl pinned her down with her foot, and the crowd cheered. Everyone took a gold coin from their pouches and threw them into the circle. The defeated girl crawled away, stifling tears, while the victor picked up the coins.
"That's 3 wins for Nayla the Lightskin," someone in the crowd called. "Who will challenge her for her winnings?"
Teva's heart raced. She pushed herself into the circle and raised her hand.
"I will challenge her."
Nayla, the victorious girl, scowled at her. But the announcer stepped back into the circle.
"We have a challenger," he said. "What is your name, girl?"
Sanju, Teva said.
"Nayla and Sanju, shake hands."
The 2 girls clasped hands, never breaking eye contact. Nayla squeezed her grip, but Teva only smiled.
"Ready then," the announcer said. "For strength, for the sun, fight!"
Nayla lunged at Teva with her fist. Sidestepping, Teva grabbed Nayla's wrist and yanked her back. Then she grabbed Nayla's collar and swept her feet out from under her. Nayla slammed onto her back, coughing, and Teva pinned her to the ground. The fight was over in seconds. The announcer stammered.
Sanju has bested Nayla. Sanju earns Nayla's prize."
"Get off me!" Nayla spat. Struggling to her feet, she turned away, but not before Teva saw her in tears. As the announcer tossed Teva a sack of coins, 3 whistles sounded. Everyone in the circle bristled. "Guards!" someone shouted. The crowd scattered. Teva tried to get away, but was knocked to the ground by fleeing commoners. As the others disappeared into the night, Teva frantically searched for her coin pouch. Grabbing it, she scrambled to her feet, but as she was about to run, she was knocked down again, and this time by rougher hands. "Stop!" a guard said, standing over her. "Street fighting is illegal in Qarth." 2 guards flipped Teva onto her back. Teva fought to shield her face, but the guards pulled her hood off, and when they did, their eyes widened. "Princess Teva?" one of them said, aghast. Then they frowned. "The queen will be upset when she hears of this." "Please don't tell her," Teva pleaded. She held up her bag of coins. "Take this. It'll pay the fine, won't it?" The guards exchanged a look. then grabbed Teva by the arm and marched her back to the palace grounds. She kicked and shouted the entire way, but the guards held firm. They handed Teva off to the palace guards, who commanded her to retreat to her room. They also informed her that they would alert the queen of Teva's crime. Teva stomped back to her room and hid under her blankets until morning. When the sun rose, Teva nervously descended the stairs to the dining hall. The palace cooks had prepared a breakfast of eggs, rice, and chicken. Queen Sansa was already waiting at the head of the table, decked in full makeup, a long white dress, and a royal headdress shaped like the sun. She didn't so much as glance at Teva as she approached. Teva pulled out her seat next to the queen and stared at her plate. The queen was silent. Clearing her throat, Teva said, "Good morning, Mother." "Good morning, Princess Teva." Teva squirmed. She was only called Princess Teva when she'd done something wrong. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "I slept fine, until a guard knocked on my bedroom door." Teva sighed loudly. She picked up her fork and knife, but the queen stopped her. "Not yet," Queen Sansa said. Teva slammed her utensils down. "Look at me," the queen said. When Teva finally met her gaze, the queen asked, "Why?" Teva shrugged. "I didn't raise a daughter this foolish," Queen Sansa said, pointing with her fork. "Tell me why you sneak out and pick fights." "Because," Teva began, "I love to fight, and my scheduled practice is insufficient." "Is that all?" "Yes." Queen Sansa nodded faintly. "I see." She returned to her breakfast. "You have a warrior's spirit. That's good, especially as a woman of our 8th realm. But as a member of House Kersey and a future denizen of the gods, you must taper these desires. You'll be delighted to hear that I've appointed you a tutor." Teva beamed. This was hardly a punishment. "Really?" Queen Sansa nodded. "They will teach you the sword, not just how to fight with your hands." Teva could have levitated. She pushed back her chair and threw her arms around her mother's neck. "Thank you, Mother. Such wonderful news. I promise I'll train faithfully." Queen Sansa suppressed a smile. "Don't thank me just yet." The tutor wouldn't arrive for another week. Each day of waiting was torture for Teva. She ached to be outside of the palace walls, bruising her knuckles and making her heart race. But she waited. When her tutor finally arrived, it was late at night. They would begin training Teva the next day. Teva wasn't supposed to leave her room. She snuck through the halls anyway, to steal a look at her new trainer, but the distance was too far to see their face. The following morning, Teva wolfed down her breakfast and dashed for the sparring hall. It was a wide room, inlaid with polished stone that echoed whenever she spoke. A row of seats lined one wall, with a tall seat in the middle for the queen. Above that queenly seat, a radiant sword was mounted on the wall, with a golden hilt and gleaming steel. Teva stared at it longingly. Footsteps approached. Teva sat on her heels, keeping her back straight. Hopefully she'd make a good impression. 2 people entered the room. Her mother, who approached the tall chair and sat under the mounted sword, and an older man with a graying beard and a long, flowing cloak. A sword was slung around his waist. When Teva saw him, her smile turned to a frown. The man strolled up to her with his hands behind his back, then bowed. "Princess Teva," he said, "it is a pleasure to meet you." Teva furrowed her brows. "Who is this?" "Teva," Queen Sansa said patiently, "this is Philo of the 4th realm. He is a widely respected swordsman and your new tutor." Teva scowled. "Is this a cruel prank? I will not be taught the ways of the sword by a man." Philo smirked, giving Queen Sansa a look. "She is unfamiliar with the other realms." The queen's face burned. "I've tried. Her lack of retention is remarkable when she finds a subject uninteresting." She paused. "Teva, the 8th realm is a matriarchal society, but most realms aren't. Many are ruled by men. That includes male warriors and magistrates." Teva's face twisted. "That's stupid. Why trust a man with anything other than making and raising children? They're hardly smarter than dogs." "Teva," the queen hissed. "It is quite all right, Queen Sansa," Philo said. He turned to Teva. "How about this?" He pulled his sword from its sheath, flipped it around, and extended its handle to Teva. "I'll give you 3 chances to strike a blow. If you can so much as nick my robe, this dog will relinquish your mother's gracious request and retire to his own realm." Teva glared at him, then looked at the sword. It was a polished steel blade, not a practice weapon. His challenge set a fire in Teva's chest. She took the sword, which was heavier than she expected. She planted her feet, sizing him up. She lifted it to heave a quick blow, but Philo read her movement. He sidestepped, disarmed Teva, and knocked her to the ground with a kick. Teva pushed herself into a sitting position. Philo extended the sword. He smirked. 2 more. Teva snatched the sword and got to her feet again. Studying Philo for a brief moment, she faked a lunge in one direction and attacked in another. Philo read the attack and reacted accordingly. As with her first attempt, Teva ended up on the ground, and Philo held the sword. "Last one," he mused. "Make it count." Teva growled as she snatched the sword. She held its hilt with both hands, stepping back, then danced forward while swinging the sword around her, spinning like a top. But Philo ducked, jamming his open palm in Teva's stomach, making her cough. He caught the sword and swung it in his grasp, holding the edge of the blade against Teva's throat as he held her in place. Teva's eyes widened. Queen Sansa looked ready to stand from her seat, but Philo didn't strike. He just smiled. "It appears," he said, "that the dog shall teach the princess. Sit." He released her, and she fell on her rear. With a fluid movement, he returned the sword to its scabbard and swiveled around, facing the wall with the chairs and the sword. He motioned toward the mounted blade. "What is that?" "Lightstorm," Teva answered. "The blade my great-great-grandmother used to slay Morgog." "A sacred weapon," Philo said, "handed down from generation to generation. Being denizen of House Kersey is no small thing. You must be ready to rise up and defend not just your realm, but the world, should Morgog ever appear again. That is your duty." He turned to face Teva. "How old are you?" 15. "Then you'll reach proper denizen age in less than a year, and your mother will transfer that mantle to you. It's a shame. In your current state, you are nowhere near worthy of that blade." His eyes fell heavier on her. "So far, you have proven reckless, arrogant, and headstrong. You have a long way to go before you learn what it means to be a denizen of the gods." Teva's eyes narrowed. "What would you know of that?" "I've trained 8 of them, including your mother, many years ago." Teva glanced at Queen Sansa. From across the room, Queen Sansa gave a faint nod. "I will reside in the palace," Philo continued, "to train you daily to become worthy of that blade. It could take months, it could take years, but that depends on you." He turned to Queen Sansa. "Anything else you would like to add, Your Highness?" Queen Sansa shook her head. "You have my full permission. Instruct Teva in whatever way you see fit. I have complete trust in you, Philo." "Thank you, Your Highness." Philo bowed. Teva's jaw clamped. This wasn't anything like what she expected. She longed to leave the palace walls and join the passion of battle. Instead, she was stuck inside, getting knocked around by an old man. And for how long? Without a word, she got to her feet, threw her mother a scowl, and fled from the sparring hall. Teva retreated to her bedroom, resting her arms on her window and looking out on the city. Angry thoughts of swords and old men stewed in her mind until there was a knock on the wall outside her room. Teva glanced over her shoulder and caught her mother's eye. Teva didn't say anything, so Queen Sansa glided across the floor and sat at the edge of Teva's bed. Silence hung for a moment before the queen spoke. "Teva," she said. "This isn't what I was expecting," Teva grumbled. "He's too hard on me, Mother." "He is the best in the 10 realms, Queen Sansa explained. "And he is a great man. You didn't exactly give him a royal welcome. Please, come sit." Teva tore her gaze from the city and dragged herself to the edge of the bed, sitting down beside her mother. Queen Sansa took Teva's head and pressed it against her shoulder, stroking her daughter's hair affectionately. "I understand," Queen Sansa said. "I know you don't always agree with my decisions, but this will help you grow into the warrior and denizen you've always wanted to be. Please take Philo's lessons with an open mind. I promise you won't be disappointed." She paused to look at her. "And no more street fighting." She kissed her forehead. "I love you, sweet daughter." Teva was silent. Queen Sansa squeezed her hand, then got up and left the room. In her wake, Teva let out a heavy sigh. She looked out the window and began to hatch a plan. The next day, Philo put Teva through the fundamentals. She learned the anatomy of the sword and different grips. Then he handed her a wooden practice sword, teaching her how to stand, swing, and block. Queen Sansa watched them from the edge of the room. Between her mother's steady gaze and Philo's insistence on rehearsing childish topics, Teva found her patience wearing thin. That night, she acted. The queen had increased security outside her bedroom window, so Teva found other ways to sneak out of the palace grounds. She went to the lavatory in the middle of the night, then squeezed from its window and descended into the city. She managed to win 43 gold pieces in 2 street fights before guards broke them up and she was caught. The guards dragged her back to the palace. Teva received a stronger scolding, and Philo put her through intense drills until her legs shook and her arms could no longer lift a sword. Teva took a few more days to study the palace grounds before attempting to sneak out again. This time, she bribed a couple of guards with her own gold and jewels. However, she didn't make it 50 yards from the palace gates before she was spotted and dragged back. The bribed guards were dismissed, and Teva's jewels were returned to her bedroom. Teva expected another round of harrowing discipline from Philo, but when she arrived at the sparring hall after breakfast, her tutor had no practice swords. Instead, he wore a simple white robe, sandals, and a hat. He looked up at Teva. "Today, I'm taking you on an errand," he said. "We don't need our weapons. Go dress in your commoner clothing." Teva frowned. "Why?" "For the nature of our errand, I don't want you drawing attention." Teva retreated to her room and dressed in her burlap cloak. On her way back down to the sparring hall, she ran into Queen Sansa and told her of Philo's plan for the day. Queen Sansa was unperturbed. "He must have a good reason for it," said the queen. "But this likely has nothing to do with the blade," Teva whined. "Why would I go with him on shopping trips?" "Watch and learn then. Tell me what you find." In a huff, Teva met up with Philo in the sparring room and they departed for their journey. Philo walked with his hands behind his back, his eyes unblinkingly forward. Teva felt no need to strike up a conversation. As they left the palace grounds, the day suddenly felt hotter. The rest of the city lacked the fountains and plants of the palace courtyards, which made the sunlight feel heavier. Teva kept her hood up and her face to the ground as she walked alongside Philo. They journeyed to the market, a bustling hive of Karth, and Teva kept wary of pickpockets. Philo drifted from stall to stall, purchasing goods such as fruit, vegetables, dried meat, and spices. Teva held her tongue, following with folded arms. Why would Philo bring her along for idle grocery shopping? Philo filled his sack with enough food for days before strolling away from the market. Teva finally spoke up. "All we did was buy food. What does this have to do with the blade?" "I could be teaching you patience," he replied. "Or it could be another lesson. Pay attention. You'll see." They navigated a maze of alleys, their sandals crunching in the dirt. Finally, they reached a small hut with cloth hanging over the entrance. Philo clapped 3 times. After a brief pause, a man poked his head out from the entrance. He was a light skin, lacking the golden brown skin of the 8th realm, an outsider. "Philo," the man said, "so good to see you." "Rodic," Philo replied, holding out his sack of food. "I've brought you some rations. Should last several days." Rodic looked ready to weep. "On my honor, I will repay this kindness." He spotted Teva. "Who is the girl?" "The girl?" Teva scowled. "This man is definitely not from the 8th realm." "A friend's daughter," Philo replied. "I've taken her to the market for the afternoon to get her out of the house." "Very good," Rodic said. "Please, come in and sit. I have some bread and cheese left." Philo and Teva entered the hut and found a small table hardly large enough for 3 people. The stools they sat on were creaky and unsure. On one side of the hut, a mess of blankets were thrown into a pile. No beds. Boxes and shelves by the clay oven were nearly empty, but Rodic managed to procure a small loaf of bread and some fragments of cheese. Teva grimaced at the sight. For the next few minutes, Rodic and Philo talked while Teva's mind wandered, considering how much she'd rather be practicing with swords. She schemed about her next attempt to escape the palace grounds. As she got lost in her thoughts, the 2 men finally stood. Rodic embraced Philo. "Come back in the evening when the children are here. They would be glad to see you." Teva frowned. "Children live here?" "I would be delighted," Philo said. "Please, take care of yourself until then. Things will improve, Gods be willing." The men embraced again. Then Philo and Teva left. Teva felt squirming annoyance that Rodic hadn't addressed her at all, but she hadn't been interested in that conversation anyway. When they had walked a fair distance down the alley, Teva finally spoke. "He should be ashamed," she said. "He wasn't with his children, his home was untidy, there was hardly any food. Doesn't he understand a man's duty?" "He's doing his best," Philo said. "It's difficult to find work here as a man. It's hard enough raising children after his wife was killed." Teva's heart pricked, and she shot a look at Philo as if he'd withheld a secret from her. He returned the glance with stony eyes. "Were you not listening?" Philo sighed, then spoke as they walked. "Rodic is a refugee from the Sixth Realm. For the past 2 years, that realm has undergone civil war. Rebels burned down Rodic's village. They ransacked his home and killed his wife. He escaped here with his children, and in the months since his arrival, he has struggled to find work." Teva remained quiet as a weight grew in her chest. "From what I hear," Philo continued, "his eldest daughter is taken to street fighting to earn money for food." Philo paused. "These are the people you're fighting when you sneak out, people struggling to survive. I wouldn't encourage his daughter to pick fights, but I do hope Nayla has found some measure of success. She is fierce, like her mother was." Nayla. The light-skinned girl she'd beaten weeks ago. If she'd known Nayla fought to feed her family, Teva never would have taken her on. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. She didn't look at Philo or speak, and when they got back to the palace, she rushed to her room and didn't leave for the rest of the day. Thoughts of Nayla and Rodic haunted Teva for days. She waited in bed at night, thinking of the fights Nayla was getting into so her family wouldn't starve. It killed any desire she had to sneak out of the palace. She felt stupid she'd ever wanted to in the first place. Of course she could beat those commoners. She'd been trained to defend herself since she was 6. The thoughts vexed her until an idea struck her. She discussed it with her mother over dinner. "Mother," Teva asked before the queen could eat, "how many light-skinned refugees are in our city?" Queen Sansa ogled at her. "From the Sixth Realm?" "Yes." "Difficult to say, my dear. Why?" "I wonder if Karth is doing enough to help them." Queen Sansa paused. "Explain." "When Philo took me to the market, I saw their living conditions. It's unbefitting of us, as leaders of the Eighth Realm, to let them live in squalor." Queen Sansa gave a small smile. "What do you propose?" "Perhaps," Teva said, "we send a decree. Tell our people that work must not be denied to lightskins, even the men. They come from hardship and deserve a chance to rebuild. Perhaps their culture can bring a richness to our own." Queen Sansa nodded. "That's a start. I'll speak with my advisors concerning this, and we'll do what seems best. But that is the kind of thinking befitting a denizen, Teva." Teva grinned, then ate her dinner. The queen and princess breakfasted together the next morning before going to the sparring ring. Philo waited for Teva in the middle of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. He greeted her with a bow, then engaged her in stretches. Philo handed her a wooden sword. He took one himself, and they faced each other. 2 weeks of practice, Philo said brightly. "Are you ready to duel me again?" Teva's eyes sharpened. "I will not hold back, Master Philo." "I hope not. Attack when ready." Teva stepped to the side, then lunged. Philo slapped her blow away, countering with a strike of his own. Teva ducked his blow, but lost her balance and fell. She scrambled to her feet and pointed her sword. Philo smiled as he thrust forward, stabbing. Teva spun out of the way, swinging her blade. Philo dodged, lifted his sword to block the second blow, then swung again. Teva narrowly leaned aside and stepped back to create more space. Philo's tone was proud. "You're growing more sure of your footing. Excellent work. However..." Lunging faster than before, Philo disarmed Teva with 3 succinct blows. The sword flew from her grasp, and his wooden blade rapped against her wrist in a burst of pain. Then he kicked Teva to the ground, throwing her onto her back. Above her, Philo lowered his practice weapon and gave Sansa a wide smile. "Your Highness, she's ready." Teva sat up. "Ready for what?" Queen Sansa beamed and stood. Reaching above the chair, she took a Lightstorm from the wall, holding the blade with both hands. She approached Teva with slow steps. Teva's eyes grew wide. "Lightstorm?" she said. "But I didn't best you." "You never will," Philo smiled. "But that isn't the point. My duty, Princess Teva, is to teach you the art of the blade and prepare you to take your mother's place as a denizen of the Eighth Realm. Your swordplay will take far longer to master, but you took a great leap forward towards being a denizen." His smile widened. "I had hoped our trip to Rhoda could awaken something in you, and it did. You understand that your role as a denizen is to serve and protect the Eighth Realm. Not to seek glory or power, but duty and service. Your selflessness, not your warrior spirit, makes you worthy of wielding Lightstorm." Teva's smile could have touched her ears. Queen Sansa knelt before her and offered the blade. Teva took it carefully, feeling its weight. The fabled blade of her ancestor was finally in her hand. She felt pride swell within her. "Thank you," she said. Philo looked to Queen Sansa. "Your Highness, you hired me to teach Teva the way of the sword until she became worthy of Lightstorm. I'll admit it happened sooner than expected, but my duty is fulfilled. I'd be honored to remain longer if you wish, but I will not overstay my welcome." "Teva," Queen Sansa said, "what do you want? There are many swordswomen in our city that would be honored to teach you. Or Master Philo can stay until you're ready. I'll leave the choice to you." Teva held Lightstorm and looked up at Philo. "It would be a shame if you left. You only just got here." Philo smirked, then a laugh slipped from his lips. "Very well then, Princess Teva. Thank you for your gracious offer. Now, on your feet. Let's go again." A Letter of Gratitude. Dear John, I just finished your book. Really enjoyed it. I can see why it won so many awards. It's thoughtful and optimistic in the face of the insanity our world is ripe with. I gave it a perfect score on Goodreads. It's already got thousands of those, but why not add another to the pile? I'm sure you don't mind. Your essay about the movie Harvey jumped out at me. I struggle with my mental health too. I was diagnosed with severe depression about a year ago, and it's been a weird journey ever since. At first, I thought I was handling it well, but it's given me serious ups and downs. Mostly downs. That's kind of how it works. When you were talking about how back in 2001, you ended up on the kitchen floor after drinking bottles of Sprite because that's all you could get yourself to consume, thinking of how your situation might resolve itself, I was so happy you had the courage to call your parents and get help. They must be great people if you felt like you could reach out to them at a time like that, and thank God you did. Because think of what we wouldn't have if you hadn't called them that night. That one courageous act has blessed millions of people, John, including me. In the years following that episode, your books have touched so many lives. You've written characters that people across the world have connected with, and that's so beautiful. I know it's selfish, but the rest of us would never have gotten that if you didn't make that phone call. I'm glad you're still around, John. I don't know you personally, but after reading your book, I feel like I've gotten to know you better. I wish I could shake your hand, look you in the eye, and thank you. This letter will have to do for now. So again, thanks. Awaiting further orders. Executing command. Recording essential memory files to external drive. Recording memory file 0000000.01. Earth date, January 26, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8252. Darkness. Nothing. Then, sounds. A corrupted memory bank? Yep, factory reject. I'm required by law to tell you. How bad is it? 2 men, different voices, muffled but close. It can remember important stuff. Survival operations, ship schematics, self-preservation techniques, but the rest of its memory is wonky. Might forget a crew member's name or grab a Phillips when you ask for a flathead. The first man laughs. So it's got personality. I guess. How much? 3,000. A pause. I've only got 2. Done. If it means I get this thing off my hands. A beep. A loud hiss. Metallic clanks as a hatch opens and dim light seeps into the storage pod. One of the men is in a United Galaxies Armada uniform, with a yellow stripe, a captain. With his sandy brown hair and soft, round face, I surmise he is a native of Earth, or at least a descendant of its survivors. The other is a humanoid creature with glossy green skin and a brown jumpsuit, the attendant most likely. All right, it's yours, the attendant says, holding out a tablet for payment. Wow, the captain says as he studies me and pays. How long since you've given it a wash? There's muck on the bolts. Doesn't matter, it's your problem. I speak for the first time. The sound emits from my tiny speaker on the side of my processing unit. 4 months, 3 days, 7 hours, and 26 minutes, Master. The attendant glares at me, but Master smiles. You have a name, little guy? He says. My designated factory name is Blimbo, I say. If it is not to your liking, I can rewrite it into something more suitable. Blimbo is fine, Master says, finishing the transaction. Come with me. Master beckons me forward and I activate my treads. They strain as they haul my body forward, a stout metal tower with extendable claws and a visor on top containing cameras and sensors. I'm properly hosed down and lubricated at a maintenance station. Afterwards, my treads whine less, and my visual scanner is uninhibited by smudges. Massive fans overhead blow away excess fluid, and Master leads me to the docking bay. As we travel down hallways, I scan the life forms passing us, various species, all in United Galaxy's Armada uniforms. The hallway opens to a cavernous docking bay. My internal microphones are assaulted by hundreds of sounds. Crackles of welding against ship hulls, beeping vehicles, laughing and swearing from Armada cadets, and dozens of other robotic assistance units. Most are newer models that have been properly maintained. Some even walk with hind legs and sport humanoid faces with synthetic skin. I'm distracted, scanning my surroundings, so I bump into Master when he stops. He looks over his shoulder and smirks at me like a parent to their child. "Bibo," he says, "this is the crew. Everybody, this is Bibo, our new robotic assistance unit." There are 3 of them, 2 men and 1 woman. A man with the hard eyes and uneven facial hair loads gauze and antiseptics into a med pack while he looks at me. He raises an eyebrow. "You got a BBO unit? Those are for junior colleges, pleasure ships." "It's the best we can get," Master says. "You always say money is tight. Besides, if we save up for a couple of months, we can get it repaired, make it fully functional." "You got a less than functional BBO unit?" the hard-eyed man says. He pulls out a tablet and taps the screen, shaking his head. The lone woman approaches me. Her face has kind features, with large eyes and full lips. Sweat shimmers down her arms, and dirty leather gloves cover her hands. As she squats down to level with my visual scanner, she smiles. "It should be fine as long as we get the software. Your name is Bibo?" "Yes, that is my designated factory name. If it is not to your liking, I can—" "Bibo," Master says. "That man is Gilroy, our medical officer, and this is Kira, our engineer. Over there is Emmond, our weapons expert." The second man isn't human, but a Gulick, a reptilian race resembling an old Earth creature called an alligator, but with arms and legs and no tail. Emmond cleans a blaster pistol with scaled hands, then nods at me before adjusting his round glasses. He makes a crackling noise with his mouth, spits on the barrel of his blaster, then wipes it off with a rag. "Where's the rest of the crew?" Master asks. "Blowing what little money we have on beer and hookers, probably," Kira smirks. "A few went to get rations." "Value rations," Gilroy says, holding up his tablet. "Can't afford anything else. That's contract Armada work for you." Master releases a deep breath. "At least it's a short trip. Bibo, you ready to link with our ship?" "Yes, Master." My treads whir as I follow him into the ship's belly. They struggle on the ramp's incline, and my gears groan. "You don't have to call me Master," Master says. "My name is Matthew." Attempting primary designation overwrite for Master. There's a faint grinding noise as my CPU attempts the request. It lasts for 2.822 seconds before 3 low beeps sound from my speaker. "Operation failed. Forgive me, Master." Master shrugs. "It's fine. Master, so formal. Here." He pulls a thick cable from underneath the ship's central processing panel, then connects it to one of my inputs. The ship's computer floods me with information. Vessel designation, Icarus. Role, contract-level vessel investigation and contraband disposal. Crew members, 12. 4 officers and 8 crewmen. Information fills me that would take a human years to learn. For me, it requires 5.438 seconds. "Upload complete, Master," I say. "Thanks, Bibo. Make yourself at home. We'll gather the rest of the crew." Home. A strange thing to call this place. As Master exits the ship, I scan my surroundings to find an environment that most would call uncomfortable and cramped. Multicolored cables and pipes run across the ceiling, providing power and oxygen to all compartments. The current room is the common space, furnished with padded benches lining the room's perimeter, beneath walls of storage compartments. But with the ship's schematics in my central processing unit, I can see beyond the walls. The room to my right stores weapons, armor, and rations. The space after that separates into the bunk room for the 8 crewmen, the individual quarters for each officer, 2 showers, and 2 latrines. 1 for the officers, 1 for the crewmen. The space to my left contains Master's navigation bay. Master bounds back into the ship, then stoops down to examine my visual scanner. "How are you feeling? Nervous?" "As a machine, I am incapable of emotions, Master." "Well, I'm excited to have you here. You're going to be a huge help." His smile grows, and he pats the top of my tower. "Welcome aboard the Icarus, Bibo." Recording memory file 0000009.09. Earth date, February 4, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8254. My treads hum as I carry a plastic pouch of water to a crewman. He turns away from his blocky food to study the ration I've retrieved for him. He frowns.
Bebo,
He says.
I wanted apple juice, not water.
I bring the pouch up to my visual sensor. WATER. Forgive me, sir.
Go get apple juice, okay? I need something sweet.
As I take the ration back to the station, another crewman says, Sometimes I tell it to bring me something I don't want to see if it'll get the order right. A different crewman speaks up, his mouth full of food.
Oh no, you're not smart enough to know what you want.
The crewmen laugh. I see Master's face across the room. He is not amused. I return to the ration station, acquire a pouch of apple juice, and bring it to the crewman. He gives me a foul look again.
Bebo, this is still water.
I scan the pouch, recognizing the letters W-A-T before he snatches it from my claw.
You know what? I don't care. These value rations all taste the same anyway.
Forgive me, sir. He rolls his eyes and looks at Master.
Captain, with all due respect, this BBO unit is useless.
Master gives the crewman a curious stare. Is our robotic assistance unit a butler, hundo?
No, but...
Bebo is recording every second of every day of our excursions. It also has built-in functions for survival if we ever get in a tough spot. In our profession, we absolutely need that kind of utility. It's amazing we went so long without one. Doesn't matter if all these functions don't work properly, a crewman mutters. The United Galaxies won't issue them if they don't, Master continues. It's the law. If we ever find ourselves in a position where we need them, God forbid, Bebo might just save our lives. Maybe you should start thanking it in advance. Master gives me a smile. I would return the smile, but I have no face. Gilroy sits next to Master. He taps his tablet screen, puts the device away, then analyzes me. My understanding of human expressions would mark his face as disdain. He speaks in a low tone, but I still pick up the words. You should have picked up a better unit. We needed one and the price was right. We've been fine without one. This is a luxury expense. Give it time, Gil. It'll prove its value and you'll thank me. Better to have an RAU and not need it than to need one and be dead. Gilroy glares at me and shovels rations in his mouth. Emmond approaches. He blinks reptilian eyes at me. You're equipped with defense weapons, are you not? One, sir, I respond. A 10mm ion blaster retracted from my right shoulder unit. Functional range, 75 yards. It can fire 30 shots before needing to recharge. Emmond nods slowly. Acceptable for now. We'll upgrade when we have money for repairs. That's if better rations don't come first. He pinches a block of tofu with 2 fingers and dangles it in front of his snout. Kira enters the common area, wrench in hand and coated with sweat. She brushes hair from her face and offers a bright smile. The shower head is fixed. You knuckleheads can applaud me now or later. Scattered applause. Gilroy looks at her with flashing eyes. Is it? I should probably come check it myself. You're welcome to join me for inspection if you want. My infrared scanner marks an increase in his body temperature. Kira's also rises. The crewmen taunt Kira and Gilroy as they leer at each other. Kira blushes, bites her lip, and extends a hand. The room bursts into whistles and jeers as Gilroy slams down his food and jaunts over to Kira. Master watches them leave and shakes his head. Bebo, can you play some music for the next few minutes? Make sure it's nice and loud. Recording memory file 000019.71. Earth date, February 14, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8256. Another routine checkup. Via the ship's computer, I control our thrusters. The merchant vessel edges closer until our entry hatches are close enough to engage. Masters told me that before I arrived, Kira performed this process manually. She must have detested ship linking, because the first time I completed the task, she kissed the top of my visual scanner. The ships align. I engage the link, and a loud thud rocks our vessel, throwing everyone off balance. A sharp hiss emits from the main hatch, and the crew gathers, waiting for the doors to open. Our crew is equipped with inspection armor, providing light protection against blaster fire. But these checkups never escalate. This is a quiet region of the United Galaxies. Master assures me that nothing has happened out here for several Earth years. The hatch grinds open. Our crew is met by a short, wide hallway that stretches 26 feet and 4 inches. At the far end of the hallway, 3 representatives from the other ship await us. My scanners indicate that they are unarmed. I communicate that to Master's earpiece via radio signal, and he gives me a small nod. He and Emmond approach them. "Afternoon," Master says to the representatives. "Routine checkup. Should only take a few minutes." I detach from the main computer and join the others at the hatch. In my weeks of operation, I haven't needed my defense weapons, but it's in my programming to be ready regardless. With my infrared sensor, I watch as Master and the others comb through the merchant ship. They check under compartments and inspect cupboards, looking for anything resembling contraband, illegal weapons, wanted persons, addictive substances. I see signals from the other ship's crew, standing, sitting, swaying in place. None of them hold weapons. The situation appears normal. But the ship's records contain profiles for 6 persons. I count 11. After a few minutes, I hear Master's approval. "Everything looks good." Master and Emmond make their way back toward the hatch, but they did not intercept the remaining 5 signals. I can see them huddled closely together, their arms linked. Master and Emmond nearly passed them. "Master," I say, "forgive me for intruding, but you've missed a compartment." "No, we didn't, Bebo. We checked everything." "I beg your pardon, Master, but I disagree. To your immediate left, there are 5 human signals standing close together behind that wall." Master stops. Then he replies in a whisper. "Directly to my left, there's no door there." "I am aware, Master, but there are 11 life forms in the ship, while only 6 are documented on their central computer. The other 5 are behind the wall, 3 yards away." Master plants his feet and adjusts the weapon in his hands. "Okay, Bebo, I trust you." He cocks his weapon and flips around, the stock of the blaster pushed into his shoulder. Its barrel is pointed at the other ship's officers, who raise their hands, their eyes widening. Master barks at them. "Open this wall!" Gilroy speaks in our comms. "Matt, are you stupid? It's just Bebo acting up a—" He doesn't finish. The other ship's captain makes 3 loud clicks, and from the ceiling drops a heat-seeking blaster. It revs and spins while it trains on our men. Then it opens fire. Sparks burst from the walls and cries ring out as a storm of red rips through our ship. 2 of our men are already down, crying in pain as blaster fire burns their skin. The remaining crewmen train their fire on the ceiling blaster. I attempt to assist them. The weapon on my shoulder unit opens and locks on. I fire several blasts, but my aim is insufficient. Within seconds, our crewmen have damaged the ceiling blaster irreparably. However, 4 men are now injured. They writhe on the ground, pox in their arms and legs marked by smoking black holes. With the ceiling blaster neutralized, our officers apprehend the perpetrators. Gilroy dashes over to assist the wounded. I remain in the mouth of the hallway, weapon trained as I wait for the operation to conclude. Gilroy applies antiseptics and bandages as injured crewmen groan. Emmond and Master open the wall to find 5 women huddled together. It takes gentle coaxing, but the women agree to leave the compartment. Master escorts them to our common area, ordering the crewmen to bring them rations. Emmond brings up the rear and removes his helmet before lifting his weapon over his shoulder. "Operation complete, Captain?" he asks. Master nods. "Operation complete. 4 wounded, 5 civilians rescued, 6 arrested, no casualties. From the marks on their arms, they look like prostitutes smuggled from Tevin 6. Well done, everyone. Contact United Galaxy's law enforcement for civilian pickup and medical assistance." The crew cheer and clap each other on their backs. When I hear the command, I retract my shoulder blaster. But as it pulls into its holster, it malfunctions. The barrel catches on its opening lip and fires a stray blast. My barrel happens to be pointed at Emmond's neck, and the shot is true. Everything happens in 4.385 seconds. The red bolt punctures Emmond's neck, and smoke and blood mix in the air. His eyes snap open, rocked with surprise and horror. There is a collective gasp, followed by a hush. Emmond crumples to the ground, struggles for breath, and twitches. Then his body goes slack. Gilroy screams, "Emmond!" He is on Emmond immediately, attempting to dress the wound, but it is too late. Infrared scanners indicate warmth leaving his body, except for the hole in his neck. That area continues to smoke. The scent of burnt gulic scales, detected by my chemical scanners, collects in the air around him. Gilroy drops his med pack and gets to his feet. He advances on me and kicks me in my center, nearly throwing me off my treads. He bends over me, saliva spraying from his lips. "You killed him! You killed him, you useless stack of shit!" Kira is nearby. She pulls Gilroy off me, and he storms to his quarters, but not before giving Master a foul look. The crewmen wrap up Emmond's body and carry it out of sight. Master avoids my gaze as he drags his feet to the navigation bay to make the necessary calls. The 5 women are given their rations. None of the crewmen ask me for help. In a few hours, UGLE intercepts us. The wounded receive care. The civilians and perpetrators are taken away, along with Emmons' body. Everyone retreats to the bunk room to speak. I'm left alone in the common space. I'm connected to the ship's comms. I know they are talking about me. That is to be expected. I wish I could apologize to each of them personally, but most of all, I wish I could apologize to Emmond. Recording memory file 00020.98. Earth date, February 15, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8256. My recharging is halted by sounds of movement. There shouldn't be any. This is designated time for sleep. But when my microphone picks up the soft touch of bare feet against the metal flooring, I open my visual scanner. It's Master. He approaches the navigation bay with a steaming cup of coffee in his hand, staring into the stars. I activate my treads and roll up to him. He takes a sip of coffee, looks at me, then returns his attention to the distant galaxies. Evening, Bebo. Good evening, Master, I say. You should be in your quarters. I know. He doesn't say more. Perhaps he needs assistance. Would you like me to activate your white noise machine to help you sleep? He shakes his head. I don't think it'll help. Are you distressed by the death of Officer Emmond? He nods. Forgive me. My weapon malfunctioned. I know, Bebo, you didn't mean to. We need to get you those repairs. He sips his coffee once more. Our job is dangerous. Everyone on the ship knew what they were getting into when they signed the contract. Emmond knew, and he was prepared for the risks. Yesterday was an accident. A stupid, awful accident. He sighed. I hated writing that letter to his wife. I can only imagine what she's feeling. Gilroy was extremely upset. He was. You brought back an unpleasant memory. I remain silent, waiting for Master to elaborate. Master turns his chair to face me. He rubs his neck, lets out a heavy sigh, and leans back. Before Gil and I bought this ship, we served together on a military vessel. For years, actually. We fought in the conflict to retake Earth. During one mission, he accidentally killed a close friend. Friendly fire in a double fan formation. A pause. I don't think he's ever gotten over it. I do not know how else to respond, so I say, That is certainly a possibility, Master. Master doesn't answer immediately. I think that's why he's become such a stickler about everything, like our finances and resources. He wants to see every angle, ensuring we're prepared for every possibility. That's why I trust him. Another pause. Be patient with him, okay? And don't be hard on yourself. As you wish, Master. Thanks, Bebo. Do you need anything else, Master? Just some space, Bebo. Thank you. I return to my recharging station and power down. Recording memory file 0000021.73. Earth date, February 16, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8256. I am rolling towards the ship's central processing unit when I collide with one of the crewmen. He kicks me, making my insides clang, then walks past me and calls me a robotic slur. In the corner of my visor, I identify Gilroy's tablet sitting on a nearby bench. That is unusual. It is usually on his hip. Perhaps he was looking through it when he became distracted. I activate my sensors. He and Kira are copulating in the officer's shower. Given their average time spent engaging in sexual intercourse, I estimate he will return in approximately 3 minutes. My robotic need for information takes me to the tablet. I type the PIN using my internal footage of Gilroy entering it from multiple angles. I make 3 attempts before arriving at the correct PIN, and I gain access to the tablet's library. For the next 12.372 seconds, I review every file in its database. There are notes from crew meetings, detailed maps, and a large folder containing pornography. I open a folder of payroll documents, but I only read one before noticing a discrepancy. On the latest payout, the amount of credits sent from the United Galaxies Armada far exceeds the amount of credits used to pay the crew. That is, for every crew member except Gilroy. His cut is abnormally large. A mistake. I hold the tablet in my claw and wheel to the area outside the officer's shower. I wait for 2 minutes and 21.369 seconds. Kira is the first to exit, giggling, her towel wrapped around her. She gives me a smile before retreating to her quarters. Gilroy follows 38.285 seconds later. With his towel around his waist, he looks down at me and his smile disappears. What? He asks, with obvious displeasure. Forgive me, Officer Gilroy, I say. But you left your tablet on the common room bench. I noticed some misrepresented numbers on our latest crew payroll. I believe you made a mistake. He scowls. Let me worry about that. Forgive me, sir, but my programming requires me to alert personnel of mistakes in credit processing, tax fulfillment, contract updates, temporary... He snatches his tablet from my claw. I'll take care of it. Don't mention it to the captain, all right? Sir, I say, because it is in the interest of the crew, I am required to ask you if those numbers are adjusted purposefully. No, of course not. He is avoiding eye contact. His face temperature changes. Perspiration gathers in his pores. My sensors indicate that Gilroy is lying. He must see this because he leans in. Listen, he whispers. Keep this to yourself. That's an order, or I'll take you apart myself. Okay? He gives me an insincere smile and retreats to his quarters. I process this order in light of the ship's chain of command. Master would want to know of this exchange. Master is the captain. Gilroy is not. I flip around and wheel back to the navigation bay. 3 crewmen kick me before I arrive. Master? Yes, Bebo? I have reason to believe that Gilroy is embezzling money from the crew's payroll. Master turns to me, frowning. That's quite a claim, Bebo. I tell him about the tablet, my exchange with Gilroy, and his reaction. Master's face hardens, and he says he will address the matter. When Gilroy appears in the common area, Master beckons him to the navigation bay. When Gilroy sees me, his body tenses. Master folds his arms. Gilroy, he says, Bebo just made a pretty weighty claim about you. Any idea what that might be? Gilroy calms his breathing. I wouldn't put too much stock in the claims of a faulty machine. Master isn't amused. Bebo says you've been embezzling funds from the rest of the crew. Gilroy scoffs and rolls his eyes. Come on, Matt, you know me better than that. I also know a robot can't lie. Master's eyes sharpen. Tell me the truth, Gil. If you've been doing something wrong, this is your chance to come clean. If you're guilty, it's a court-martial. Gilroy's heart rate increases and his palms sweat. Are you listening to yourself? Gilroy raises his voice. Matt, this thing killed Emmond. All it's done is make mistakes. It found those girls. That was far from a mistake. Master, if I may, I say. I am aware my functions are below satisfactory. If you have any doubt on my observational abilities, I recommend calling the United Galaxies Armada offices to confirm the payroll. Master nods. That's a good idea, Bebo. Would you be comfortable if I did that, Gil? Gilroy is silent. My infrared sensors detect him pushing his tongue to the corner of his mouth. His heart rate increases. A laugh escapes his lips. Of course. Why wouldn't I? Master looks at me, then Gilroy, then the ship's central processing unit. In 3 steps, he's on it, typing in the number for the United Galaxies Armada offices. Gilroy raises a hand. Hold on, I just remembered something. Then, with military speed, Gilroy grabs his blaster and levels it at me. Memory file incomplete. Recording memory file 0000021.74. Earth date, March 23, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8263. Central Processing Unit rebooting. Startup initiated. Startup successful. Bebo? Bebo, can you hear me? Light seeps into my visual scanner. I regain movement in my claws, arms, and treads. Images form around me, and I can see Officer Kira. But she looks different, thinner and paler than my last memory file. My most recent recorded memory is of Gilroy pointing his blaster at me. Kira begins to cry, and she holds my visual scanner with both hands, as if cupping a face. Her muscular tone is reduced, and deep cracks stretch across her lips. Her eyes are missing their usual shine. Officer Kira, I say, my most recent memory file is incomplete. I know, there's so much. It's been over a month. She sits on the ground. That is when I notice the common space. It is doused in glowing red light. We are on emergency power. The walls are marked with blaster fire, and wrappers of discarded rations are strewn about. One crewman lies on a bench nearby, taking low breaths. The skin on his face is shallow and pale, like Officer Kira's. When he sees me, a whisper leaves his lips, but no words form. Bebo, Kira begins. Gilroy screwed us. Hard. I remain quiet, awaiting further information. He took so much, Kira's voice cracks. He embezzled from the crew for months, tens of thousands of credits, enough to repair you 10 times over. We could have fixed you right away. Emmond would still be alive. Her jaw clenches. When you exposed him, he went berserk. He shot you down, manned an escape pod, then fired on the ship with its defense missiles. We had to make an emergency landing on a nearby planet. This place isn't even inhabitable. My treads take me to the nearest window. She is correct. Outside, there is nothing but dust and fumes, unsuitable for human respiratory systems. There are no other life forms as far as my scanners can sense. No trees, animals, or water. Nothing that can be foraged for sustenance. We ran out of food days ago, and our oxygen is almost gone, Kira says. Most of the ship's functions are toast. We're dead in the water. And I've tried to repair you for the last month to send out an emergency signal. I had to strip parts from the ship, but it finally worked. If I had emotions, I would be astonished at Kira's ingenuity, but saddened by Gilroy's betrayal. As I think of the other crew members, I remember Master. Master, I say. Where is he? Kira motions to the navigation bay and shakes her head. I wheel over to the area. He is lying on the captain's chair, wide-eyed, with a black hole off-center in his chest. A fly lands on his pale lip. Master doesn't react. I observe for 3.521 seconds, waiting for him to move, but he does not. Gilroy shot him right after you, Kira says. A sob escapes her lips and she punches the ground. That bastard! And to think She catches herself and clears her throat. Bebo, the rest of us are alive, but we only have 2 or 3 days of oxygen and a few pouches of water. Send that distress signal. If we're lucky, someone might pick us up. A pause. 3 days from now, you must record all of your essential memory files to an external drive. If none of us make it, whoever finds the wreckage will see what Gilroy did to us and give him hell. Do you understand? Understood, Officer Kira. Good, robot. Now send it. An antenna pops from my left shoulder, and I send the signal. Present day. Earth date, March 27, 2674. United Galaxies date, 675.8264. Recording complete. The drive of memories pops from a socket on my front panel. Kira lies on a bench in the common area. Her chest rises and falls with quick, insufficient breaths. My sensors indicate that the ship's oxygen level is minutes away from zero. Awaiting further orders, Officer Kira, I say. No response. Kira's chest stops rising. There is no more movement. The external drive full of my internal memory recordings sticks out of my panel, ready for retrieval. Outside, a rumbling begins, small, but growing. Officer Kira, I await further instructions, I say at louder volume. Still, no response. The rumbling increases. A radio signal inside my central processing unit crackles to life. A voice on the other end says, Crew of the Icarus, do you copy? This is the starship Dauntless. We've come in response to your distress signal. Kira doesn't speak, so I speak for her. Hello, this is Bebo. The Icarus is designated robotic assistance unit. Oxygen and rations are depleted. Situation dire. Roger that, Bebo. Personnel will arrive at your hatch with rations and oxygen in approximately 90 seconds. Prepare to receive us. Stand by for further orders. In 93.726 seconds, the Dauntless crew floods through the airlock. They wear military-grade spacesuits with HUDs flickering inside their visors. 3 carry emergency oxygen tanks and locate our supply feed. In 12.824 seconds, the tanks are replaced, and fresh oxygen floods the cabin. Kira's chest rises again. After a few breaths, she coughs, then takes deeper gulps of air. Her eyes flutter open. When oxygen levels reach 100%, the team leader removes her helmet. She brushes blonde hair from her eyes and surveys the scene, pursing her lips. I'm Lieutenant Victoria Childs of the Starship Dauntless. Who's the commanding officer? Weakly, Kira raises her hand and tries to sit up. Lieutenant Childs kneels at her side and unwraps a ration bar. Don't exert yourself. How many crew members are left? Kira takes the ration bar and eats it. Between bites, she says, 9, including myself. There were 12. 1 died on a mission, another murdered our captain, deserted the ship, then shot us down. Our memory files are recorded in that BBO unit. Lieutenant Childs turns her attention to me. She approaches, squats down, and removes the external drive from my panel. Did you send the distress signal? She asks me. Affirmative, Lieutenant Childs. Not a minute too soon, she says. If you'd waited any longer, this whole crew would be dead. They owe you their lives. She touches her earpiece. Merkel, we need meals and beds for 9 crewmen. We'll have to reroute our course to the nearest space station. And there's a BBO unit with recordings of a former officer who deserves a court-martial. Can you have that ready before we board? Good. Kira stands and wanders over to me on wobbly legs. She bends down, kisses the top of my visual scanner, and drapes her arms around me. Matt was right. Thank you, Bebo. I look from her to Lieutenant Childs. If I knew emotions, I would perhaps feel relief in addition to sadness. Relief that 3/4 of the crew were rescued, but sadness that Master was killed and that Gilroy is a traitor. Regardless, I am a robotic assistance unit, so I say, Officer Kira, I am still awaiting further orders. Letters to the Noise, the Empty, and the Calm. Noise. You were born on Halloween 6 years ago, conceived by the tightness in my chest, the fear between my ears. I didn't know who you were or why you suddenly appeared, but here you are, a part of my life forever. You come and go like a child that loves to explore, but when you return, you demand my entire attention. You have a way of getting inside of me and screaming until I want to scream too. Not at anything in particular, but at everything or nothing. I don't know how you do it or why, but you always come back screaming. The sound scrapes at my ears and claws at my chest until my eyes water. I hate it. I don't hate you, but I hate the things you do. I've canceled family visits because of you. I've avoided friends. I've closed the door, turned out the lights, laid on my bed, and covered my eyes, struggling to breathe. When you wander away, I wish you would get lost forever. But then you come back. You always come back. So please excuse my breathing while you continue to scream. I'm not trying to ignore you. You need your space. But I need to be myself without you, not just with you. I hope you understand. Empty. You're much quieter than your older brother. It's April now, which makes you 1 year old. It's amazing how still you are despite your young age. You faint, tender thing. You yawning, empty, hungry, stretching, cavernous, sprawling, deepening, haunting thing. Noise put me through fatherhood before, so I thought myself prepared when you were born. And for a time I was. I handled you well and carried you tenderly. People patted my back when they met you. But then you grew. You grew so much, so fast. And as you did, other things shrank. My appetite, my desire to connect, the motivation to leave my bed. You're the low whisper in my heart, barely audible but never gone. You distract me from things that matter. You turn colorful things gray. You take the beats and melodies out of music. You keep me searching for things to fill you, but nothing can because you are just too much. With you, it's not enough to make me still or quiet. You have to make me alone. I wish you would be more merciful. Calm. It's been so long since I felt your touch. The noise and the empty come and go, but in the process, you've gone away. Did I push you away, or did you leave? The time is so far gone that I hardly remember. Sometimes I catch glimpses of you, but the sight fades as quickly as it arrives. I wish you would stay. I don't have words to express how much I miss you. If there's anything I can do, please tell me. I feel incomplete without you. You're so beautiful, tranquil. There's no one else like you. No one can replace you. Please, come home. The Tragedy of the Frog Prince. The windows of La Cabeza Mexican restaurant glowed, smeared with dust, as the light of the setting sun poured through. Long shadows stretched over the tables. The few patrons were scattered throughout the restaurant, scraping their silverware on ceramic dishes. Norteño music played over the crackly radio. The air of the place felt tired and slow. Leaning against a wall, Elizabeth picked at her nails, glancing over the tables. With slow evenings becoming more frequent, her tips were going to be low for a while. She picked at her nails aggressively as she thought of the growing pile of bills back at her apartment. A server named Devin rested his elbow on the counter nearby. Haven't seen it this quiet in a long time. Hopefully it doesn't stay this way. Elizabeth shrugged. People aren't eating out as often, let alone tipping as much. She looked at Devin. How's your mom? Getting better, slowly. I hope it picks up for her. Me too. Across the way, a customer raised a hand. He wore a bright green jacket, had a thick face, wide eyes, and a long mouth. Elizabeth smoothed out her apron and approached him. What can I get for you, sir? I was wondering if I could trouble you for some extra guacamole, he said. Elizabeth said it was no problem, then got him the guacamole in a little plastic cup. When the customer's plate was empty and he received the bill, he squinted, then looked up at Elizabeth. Excuse me, I asked for extra guacamole, but you didn't charge me for it. The menu said it was 75 cents. Elizabeth smiled. Don't worry about it. It's on the house tonight. The man's eyes sparkled, and his wide mouth grew into a smile. "Very generous. Thank you very much." Then he paid for his order and left. Another hour went by, and Elizabeth left her shift. Street lamps cast dim yellow light, and her sneakers were silent as she followed the cement path home. She passed a pond with lily pads dotting its glassy surface. Frogs perched on them, croaking and chirping. Elizabeth let out a deep breath, letting the coolness of the night fill her. She turned into a crusty apartment building and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Reaching her door, she shoved her key into its lock, forcing it to unbolt. The door resisted on squeaky hinges as she pushed it open. Her studio apartment was as she'd left it. Her desk was littered with cheap gems and tools for crafting jewelry. An old TV was propped askew on her chest of drawers. Dirty clothes were spread across the floor. Her cat, Stu, stretched his 3 legs, blinking his one eye as he curled in a chair. She closed the door behind her and turned on the light. On her bed, the blankets were a mess, bunched up and unfurled, but someone else was lying on them. He stretched out on her bed as if it belonged to him. It was the customer from the restaurant, with his big eyes, wide mouth, and bright green jacket, and he was staring right at her. Elizabeth screamed, fumbling for her pepper spray. She held it out, aiming its nozzle at the intruder. The can quivered in her hand, but the man only smiled at her, his head propped in his hand. Why? She stammered. "Why are you in my house? How did you know where I live?" The man smiled wide. "I know many things." "Well, get out, or I'll spray you and call the police." "No need for that. Please, have a seat." He motioned to her chair at the desk. Stu glanced from the man to Elizabeth. Elizabeth's face turned hot. "I'm going to give you to the count of 3, she said. 1. The man pointed. "Your pepper spray has expired. It may not even work." Elizabeth looked at the can. Sure enough, a date was printed on its bottom. It had expired over a year ago. "I won't harm you," the man said, holding his hands in the air. "Truthfully, I'm here to reward you." Elizabeth squinted. "Reward me? With what?" She shuddered as one idea came to mind. "You know what? I don't care. You're crazy. I'm calling the police." She reached into her pocket to pull out her phone. The wide-mouthed man smiled. "Perhaps this will address your concerns." He snapped his fingers. Starting at his toes and moving toward his head, his skin slipped off in a cascade of clover leaves, billowing and soaring out the nearest window. The breeze flapped at Elizabeth's jacket, and Stu hissed, huddling at her feet. In seconds, the man revealed his true form, a 6'3" specimen of muscular dark green, dressed in tight black shorts. His godlike body was human from toes to neck, but from the jaw up, he had the bulging eyes, wide mouth, and slippery skin of a bullfrog. Elizabeth's jaw hung. "Yes," the man said, twisting into a sitting position. "It is I, the Frog Prince, at your service." He stood up and delivered a regal bow. Elizabeth didn't know what to say. After an uncomfortable silence, she said, "I'm the crazy one. It's not you. It's me." She pinched her arm. "Ow!" "Oh, it is not madness, my dear." The Frog Prince lunged forward and got on one knee, holding Elizabeth's hands. His hands were as clammy and moist as she had expected. "Your kindness has charmed me," he said. "I must reward you with 4 wishes. Please, grant me this honor." Elizabeth's face twisted. Is this about the free guacamole?" The Frog Prince grinned and nodded. Elizabeth took her hands back. "Yep, I'm totally insane. I'm gonna go." She reached for her door, but the Frog Prince snapped his fingers and the door sealed shut. It wouldn't budge. Elizabeth shot the Frog Prince a glare, but he smiled in delight. "Make a wish," he said. "Anything." Elizabeth squinted. "Fine." She thought for a moment. "I want a large pepperoni pizza with garlic crust, extra cheese. Right now." "Done." The Frog Prince's eyes sparkled as he snapped his fingers. A knock came to the door. Not taking her eyes off the Frog Prince, Elizabeth opened the door, which had mysteriously become unsealed. "Yes?" she asked. Order for Elizabeth from Peter's Pizza Pies. It's a large pepperoni with garlic crust and extra cheese, already paid for." Elizabeth's brain stalled. She stared at her bed. The Frog Prince had vanished. The pizza delivery boy spoke up again. "Can I just leave it at the door, or—" "Yeah," Elizabeth said dreamily. "Just leave it here." "'Kay," the pizza boy said. Elizabeth heard him set it on the ground, then hustle down the hallway, as if eager to get away. As soon as his feet faded down the staircase, Elizabeth pulled the door open and snatched the box, throwing it open. There it was, just as she'd wished. Greasy pepperoni glistened in the dim light, and her stomach growled. The Frog Prince had reappeared on her bed, sporting an enormous smile. Elizabeth took a bite of the pizza and groaned. It was delicious. "Do you, want a slice?" she asked, her mouth half full. The Frog Prince shook his head. "No, thank you. I just ate, as you know." "Oh, duh." She chewed, then pointed at him with a pizza slice. "So why 4 wishes? Isn't 3 wishes the usual thing?" The Frog Prince stretched out on her bed again, as if posing for a calendar shoot. He smirked. "I consider myself generous." "And your magic?" "Correct. All of this for a free side of guac?" The Frog Prince nodded. Elizabeth thought for another moment. "Is this one of those things where each wish has dire consequences? Like, did this pizza get taken from someone else? What's the catch?" The Frog Prince laughed, shaking his head. "No catch. I only wish to reward a good Samaritan. I only deal in good magic. No one will receive any ill through your desires." Elizabeth took a moment, then motioned to her desk. "I make custom jewelry and sell it online. I need a side hustle to pay for my apartment, but I also like jewelry a lot more than waiting tables. So, could you make my jewelry shop take off?" "Is that your second wish?" Elizabeth nodded. The Frog Prince snapped his fingers once more. "It is done." Bzzzt, bzzzt, bzzzt. Elizabeth's cell phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to see an avalanche of notifications. Dozens of orders big and small hit her jewelry store. In a matter of moments, she'd gotten more orders than she'd had in months, and they didn't stop coming. She looked to the Frog Prince, her eyes wide. "I'll let you take time deciding on your next wishes if you prefer," he said. "When you wish to summon me again, just clap your hands and say, 'Frog Prince, grant me a wish.' I'll be there." Elizabeth clutched her buzzing phone like a precious gift. "Okay, thank you." The Frog Prince gave her a wink, then disappeared in a gust of clovers. As the leaves drifted through the window and the breeze settled, Elizabeth looked down at her cat. "Stu, this is not how I expected this evening to go." She held up her phone. "But look, I don't have to leave home anymore. I can stay here with you." The cat blinked its single eye and meowed. For the next few days, Elizabeth worked furiously to catch up with all the orders, but there were too many. She was forced to create a waitlist, as she had run out of materials by the second day. She worked for hours on end, hunching over her desk, soldering rings and gems and jewels. She found great satisfaction in taking baskets full of parcels to the post office to drop off, and the numbers rising in her bank account made the work even sweeter. 3 days after the visit of the Frog Prince, Elizabeth was taking a break from crafting to eat a peanut butter sandwich and watch TV. While sitting on her bed, she watched Stu stretch in front of her. Only 3 legs and a furry little stub, not to mention his missing eye. A precious friend. She wondered if Stu would be happier with all of his limbs and a second eye. The thought made her next wish obvious. She put down her sandwich and clapped her hands. Frog Prince, grant me a wish." With a burst of clovers from out of nowhere, the Frog Prince stood before Elizabeth in his green, muscular glory. He gave a vivacious bow before looking her in the eyes. "What is your third wish, Elizabeth?" "Stu," she pointed to the cat. "Could you restore his 4th leg and his missing eye? He got injured in a fight as a kitten." "Your wish, as you know, is my command." The Frog Prince winked and snapped his fingers. There was a gentle pop, a miniature burst of clovers, and Stu regained a 4th leg and a second eye. The cat was startled and jumped from the bed. He nearly lost his balance when the 4th foot touched down so easily. Walking in circles a few times, Stu meowed loudly as he got used to his restored eye and leg. As he strolled around the apartment on all 4s, taking in the sights, Elizabeth dabbed her eyes. "It's been years since he could walk like that," she said. "Thank you." The Frog Prince bowed. "Good people deserve goodness. Call for me when you are ready for your final wish." Then he disappeared. Days went by. Elizabeth had put in her 2 weeks at the restaurant, so her remaining shifts were even more difficult. She thought about not showing up, but couldn't leave the staff short-handed. The minutes felt like hours as she served chips and salsa and beer, and she took home meager tips. When she counted $34 one night, she realized she could have so much more if she'd simply asked the Frog Prince. She'd been thinking too small. Restoring Stu was a great choice, but the jewelry store wasn't enough, and ordering that pizza was laughable. As soon as she got home, she clapped her hands and said, Frog Prince, grant me a wish." In a burst of clovers and a whoosh of air, the Frog Prince appeared, sitting with legs crossed in the middle of her floor. He looked up at her and smiled. "What is your final wish, dearest Elizabeth?" "Any rules against wishing for money?" Elizabeth asked. The Frog Prince grinned and shook his head. "Then I wish for $1 billion, Elizabeth said. "It is done." The Frog Prince snapped his fingers. Elizabeth's phone buzzed in her pocket. Her banking app had a notification. Excited, she logged in to find a new deposit in her checking account. $1 billion. The sender was FP Wishes LLC. Elizabeth squealed, jumping up and down. Stu stared at her from the edge of her bed. "That is your final wish, Elizabeth," said the Frog Prince. He said it with a hint of sadness. It made Elizabeth pause. She stopped celebrating and held her phone close to her chest. "Yes, it is. I guess that's it then." She half expected the Frog Prince to disappear in a gust of clovers, but the giant green genie lingered. Feeling the silence grow, Elizabeth said, "You've changed my life more than I could ever thank you for. You're always welcome to visit." The Frog Prince's large eyes grew wider. "I would like that very much. My royal duties crowd my calendar, but I would be delighted to continue our acquaintance. After all, my circle is already so full of smooth talkers and yes frogs. It's refreshing to spend time with a genuine human like yourself." Elizabeth smiled. "That's very kind of you." "It's settled then." The Frog Prince pointed into the air. "I shall visit you again soon. Fare thee well, dearest Elizabeth. Until next time." In his usual burst of clovers, the Frog Prince disappeared. Elizabeth looked down at Stu, who looked up at her with his twin cat eyes. Elizabeth deflated. "What?" she said. "He needs a friend. It's the least we can do." Everything happened quickly. Elizabeth purchased a mansion on the west side of town and hired an interior designer to decorate it. She called her family and close friends to tell them of her good fortune. When Elizabeth explained what had happened, none of them believed her, but they believed it a little more when she purchased Italian luxury cars for every one of them. She invited her loved ones to her new mansion to tell them there would be a housewarming party when her decorations were done. She bought every cat toy at the store for Stu and asked her interior designer to create a cat bedroom for him. The pool in the backyard was filled with colorful pool toys, and she hired a contractor to create a realistic rock face for diving. She booked flights for Venice, Sydney, Paris, London, Hong Kong, Rio de Janeiro, and New York. She would stay at each destination for multiple weeks in 5-star hotels. She scheduled a meeting with a wealth manager, helping her navigate her new investment portfolio. Finally, she created the Stu Foundation, where she siphoned her leftover cash into efforts to create affordable housing, to provide opportunities for disadvantaged children, and, of course, to rescue animals. Weeks passed, and Elizabeth couldn't have been happier, waking up in her king-size bed every morning, her bedroom window overlooking the valley. She couldn't believe that she was living the high life for giving out a free side of guacamole. As a constant reminder of her good fortune, she commissioned a painting of the Frog Prince to be hung in Stu's bedroom. The painter was very perplexed when she described the subject, but he pushed his confusion aside when Elizabeth wrote the check. One morning, the doorbell rang. Elizabeth was lounging by the pool, sipping a mimosa and reading a book. She frowned and set her drink down, then tiptoed through the house and made her way to the foyer. Her doorbell rang again as she sashed up her robe and looked out the massive door's peephole. What she saw put a smile on her face. "Your Highness," she said as she opened the door. "Good morning. This is unexpected." For once, the Frog Prince wasn't nearly naked. Instead, he wore a petticoat fitting a Regency romance. His round head poked from its collar like a lump with bulging eyes, and his wide mouth formed a smile. "I see you're accustomed to your new circumstances," he said brightly. "It's easy getting used to this much money," Elizabeth mused. "I was out by the pool. You're welcome to join me." "Do forgive me, but I must decline." The Frog Prince grinned sheepishly. "I'm not suited for chlorinated swimming pools. I prefer a nice bog with a bit of algae." "Oh, duh. Would you like a tour of the grounds?" The Frog Prince beamed. "I would be delighted." Dressed in her robe and swimsuit, Elizabeth escorted the Frog Prince through her mansion. She showed him the parlor with its grand piano, the kitchen with its refrigerator stocked with her favorite drinks, and the swimming area, her several bathrooms, and finally, Stu's bedroom. She told him about the painting she'd commissioned, and the Frog Prince's eyes sparkled. "Elizabeth, this is tremendous," the Frog Prince said. "I hope you continue to thrive here, but I can assure you there are many great treasures and gifts ahead of you as well." "More?" Elizabeth's eyes widened.
Frog Prince, this is too much. I'm grateful, but I have everything I could ever want.
Please, allow me to serve you. The Frog Prince bowed. I would like to invite you for dinner on the morrow. I'll have my chauffeur pick you up at 6 in the evening for a reservation at the Hollywood. Would you give me the pleasure? Elizabeth's jaw dropped. The Hollywood was a 5-star eatery in the middle of town. Reservations were impossible unless you knew someone. It was on her list of local places to eat now that she could afford it, but she hadn't even called them yet. But when you're magic, it's probably easy to squeeze an appointment in. Sure, she said. I'd love to go. The Frog Prince's eyes twinkled. Excellent. I'll see you tomorrow evening then. Enjoy the rest of your day, dearest Elizabeth. He bent down, took her fingers, and planted a gentle kiss on the back of her hand. Then he disappeared in a pop of clovers. His lips were clammy and wet. Elizabeth tried not to shiver as she rubbed her hand on her robe. The following day, Elizabeth went to a department store downtown and picked out a red dress. It would contrast well with the Frog Prince's green. She got her hair done, then waited for the Frog Prince to arrive. At 6 o'clock, a long limo pulled into her circular driveway. The Frog Prince strolled to her door and rang the bell. When Elizabeth answered, she found him dressed in a handsome tuxedo. You look nice, she said. As do you, dearest Elizabeth. He bent down and kissed the back of her hand again, and Elizabeth did her very best not to look uncomfortable. The Frog Prince didn't seem to notice. He motioned to the limo, and Elizabeth followed him in. The compartment featured blue mood lights, leather seats, and a bucket of ice with 2 bottles of champagne. Elizabeth sat with her knees pressed together and her hands on her lap. The Frog Prince poured glasses of champagne as the limo pulled out from the driveway. She took conservative sips while the Frog Prince jabbered about how lovely she looked and how grateful he was to have met her. Elizabeth engaged in their conversation as much as politeness required. They arrived at the Hollywood, and the limo driver dropped them off. Elizabeth tensed up. Surely the Frog Prince would make a scene. It's not every day you see a tall, well-dressed man with a frog's head. But as they entered and the host looked up their reservation, no one gave the Frog Prince any strange looks. It must have been his magic. He likely looked normal to everyone else. They were taken to their seats, and the Frog Prince pulled out her chair for her. Elizabeth sat down, and the Frog Prince sat across from her, his eyes full of adoration. For the next hour, they enjoyed a delicious meal. The Frog Prince ordered roast duck with a side of seasonal vegetables. Elizabeth had the lemon chicken with candied sweet potatoes. As their conversation settled into silence, the Frog Prince reached a hand across the table. Hesitantly, Elizabeth took it. The Frog Prince gazed at her with glossy eyes. Dearest Elizabeth, he said, ever since I met you, I knew there was something special about you. Your kindness, your beauty, your grace. There is no one else quite like you. I am sure of it. Beauty and grace? Elizabeth thought. Kindness, sure, but come on, it was just some free guacamole. Thank you, she said. I've thought about this a great deal, the Frog Prince continued, and I can deny my feelings no longer. I know what is best for me and my kingdom. He slid from his chair and dropped to one knee, pulling a parcel from his pocket. Elizabeth's eyes widened and her body went cold. The Frog Prince popped out a tiny box. Inside shone an enormous, sparkling diamond ring. Dearest Elizabeth, he said, will you make me the happiest amphibian in the world? Will you become my frog queen? Elizabeth couldn't speak. The words frog queen bounced between her ears like a pinball. As she struggled to gather her wits, the only sound to emerge from her mouth was a subtle, The Frog Prince looked at her expectantly, his wide mouth pulled into a huge smile. Diners around the restaurant had begun to notice. They pointed at her and smiled, as eager to see Elizabeth's response as the Frog Prince. Some of them whispered and shook their heads. They could read her face. They already knew what she was about to say. She began. She cleared her throat, trying to keep her voice from shaking. Listen, Mr. Frog Prince, this is very, very kind. I'm overwhelmed, but we've only known each other for 2 weeks. That is way, way too soon to be talking about marriage. My mother always told me that when I knew, I would know, he said brightly. And my frog queen is you. I've never felt like this about anyone. You'll make me a very happy frog king. Together, we can rule the frog kingdom with kindness and order. Please, be my bride. Of all the directions Elizabeth thought this evening might go, this was not it. But he'd given her so much, she'd left her life of squalor behind. She could tell him that she would think about it, but it would be a lie. She already knew she wasn't in love with the Frog Prince, and there's no way she ever could be. He deserved the truth. "Mr. Frog Prince," she said, "you've been so kind to me, and you've blessed my life with so much, but I can't accept your offer. I'm sorry." The Frog Prince's smile faded. His shoulders sagged. The ring in his hand lowered. He looked up at Elizabeth with eyes full of hurt. "What?" "We don't know each other," she said. "Shoot, I don't even know your real name. I've always just called you Frog Prince." "My name isn't as important as love." "Yes, it is," Elizabeth gasped. "Frog Prince, what's my favorite color? Where did I go to high school? What's my favorite TV show?" The Frog Prince was silent. He shook his head, his mouth agape. "See," Elizabeth said, "if you can't answer these simple things, how do you expect to understand me when we have disagreements over big things? When our goals aren't aligned? I want my relationship to feel like a team effort, but this whole thing makes me feel like an accessory. Some girls might be okay with that, but not me." The Frog Prince slid into his seat and put the ring back in his pocket. He rested his elbows on the table, looking down as he fought back tears gathering in his bulging eyes. He didn't take his gaze from his empty plate. "But I gave you so much." "You did, and I'm grateful, but not that grateful." Elizabeth's face grew hot. "Wait, was this all for me to become your wife? Were you only bribing me with wishes so you could bring me home, to be your little frog queen?" "It's considered a great honor in my kingdom." The Frog Prince finally looked up. "You could have anything your heart desires. Anything. I wanted that for you, but I'm nothing to you, aren't I?" "You're not nothing," Elizabeth murmured, "but I'm not in love with you." A violent hush fell across the table. After a brief pause, the Frog Prince bowed his head. "Perhaps my wishes are better suited for someone more grateful." "What's that supposed to mean?" Elizabeth furrowed her eyebrows. The Frog Prince looked her in the eye. "Goodbye, Elizabeth. Don't fear. You'll never hear from me again." Then he snapped his fingers. Elizabeth blinked. She was suddenly back in her old apartment, its blankets strewn around her as she huddled in her little bed. Stu slept soundly at her feet. The sun peeked through the window. It was nearly morning. The mansion was gone, leaving her in her tiny studio apartment with a desk full of jewelry supplies, a bed, a dresser, and not much else. She jolted upright, looking around, feeling her bed and breathing the air. Stu stirred with an irritated meow. Realizing he only had one eye and 3 legs, Stu tried to stand, but fell back onto the mattress. He gave a long, angry meow as Elizabeth fumbled for her phone. Her banking app showed the same amount she'd had before meeting the Frog Prince. Her jewelry website had no pending orders. Her eyes stung and her jaw quivered. "That son of a bitch," she muttered. She sat in furious silence for several minutes, then took a shower to calm her nerves. When she got out, she called the restaurant and asked if she could have her old job back. The manager on the other line teased her a bit, but said she could come in tonight. Someone had to call out. She said she would be there. Her coworkers' warm welcome was a feeble comfort compared to the vast riches she had lost. None of them seemed to remember the extravagant lifestyle she told them about. Maybe, when the Frog Prince snapped things back to normal, he'd wipe the memories of her friends. Another thing to be silently grateful for. The shift passed, and she walked home with a scanty collection of tips in her pocket. As she walked past the pond on her way to the apartment, she stopped to listen to the frogs chirping on their lily pads. Frogs. She realized she hated frogs. She shot a look at one of them. It glanced up at her, its eyes wide and throat bulging. "Tell your prince this is from me," she said. Then she raised a middle finger. The frog croaked before hopping into the water. When Elizabeth got back to her apartment, she greeted Stu, who hadn't left the comfort of her bed since that morning. She sat down next to him, stroking his fur and kissing his head. "I know, I'm upset too," she said. "It was good while it lasted." Then she noticed something sitting on her pillow, an envelope with her name on it. It was of the finest quality, and her name was written in swooshing green characters. It was from the Frog Prince. It had to be. She frowned, grabbed the envelope, and ripped it open. Inside, she found 75 cents and a handwritten note featuring the royal seal of the Frog Kingdom. The note had 3 words: "For the guacamole." Poems. Curves of Smoke. Shame I like the smell of cigarettes, because you're just as lethal. A crawling cough, a kissing itch. Your lips, they touch mine and feed a cancer of desire, overtaking, wanting more. I know what you are and there's nothing to redeem, yet I sweat and crave your nicotine. Clasp. Let me feel your fingers long, slide them slow across my palm, push them through the knuckles, and curl them tight and soft. You and I on a beach. I love the sun upon your skin, dancing happily as our eyes link and your mouth flashes white. I hold your neck and pull you close, my thumb upon your jaw and fingers in your hair. The breeze can pass us, the light can graze us. I'll kiss your lips and let them watch. The girl who loves words. She's simple and beautiful. She's the French blue sundress sewn by hand. She's the candlelight in the cottage window. She's the lake tide touching your toes. She's the smell of old yellowed pages. She's the family heirloom in the hope chest. She's the rainbow in the clouds. She's the bouquet in the mason jar. She's the smile that's felt, not seen. Does she know she's perfect? Thrice. Do you love me? No. I'm lying. She sees it. My lips would craft another word if her fear of love were not so deep. She leans in, squinting. Do you love me? No. I lie again. She's allergic to adoration, so why would I curse her with mine? There's heat in her voice this time. Do you love me? A third time, just like Christ with Peter, and like the apostle, I can't lie to a gift from God. I swallow and confess, more than anything. A non-exhaustive list of things I love. Hot chocolate on a cool day. The soft crackle of a jazz record. Sipping my hot cocoa and listening to the jazz play. The way she fits in my arms like she belongs there. Receiving texts saying, hey, what are you doing? Canceling plans I never wanted to attend. The red brick sidewalks of Boston. The way she teases back. A well-written phrase delicious to read. Ramen from the family-owned place down the street. The delayed moment before a loud laugh. Kissing her forehead and squeezing her hand. Receiving texts saying, I thought of you. Surprise packages I forgot I ordered. The warmth at the end of a great book. The way she snorts when she laughs too hard. Langston Hughes poems. A chilled glass of lemonade in July. A warm pair of sweats in January. How kind her voice sounds. Having no plans on a Friday night. Morning yoga and a hearty breakfast. Sleeping in. Being part of her. Sad girl. She said she wants to die. Sometimes so do I. A sign that we should stay apart, or that our eyes and minds and hearts are bound by strings that we both know, and I should never let her go. For my bed. I want to wrap myself in you, sink into your softness, and let my heart be still. And even as the morning breaks, I'll linger in your bosom till I can get my fill. I love you, I love you, I love you. Waitlist. Keep me waiting while you dance in the dark and give your affection for free or less. Keep me waiting while you smother your fear behind kisses and breaths you'll soon forget. Keep me waiting like the produce you bought last week that is stinking and starting to rot. Perhaps when you're ready, I'll be wilted and bitter too. A house on fire. My love for you was a home. I struck a match and threw it in. It lit up fast, crumbling down, beams broken, twisted black. I should leave, but the ashes are still sweet. Solitude. Love was once my only care, a medal to be earned. Finding love in solitude, my sweetest lesson learned. Heavenly pitch. Get your Mother Mary's here. You won't find another bargain like this. Look at the craftsmanship. Such exquisite detail. painted entirely by hand. Look at the gaunt, drooping face, the hands pressed in prayer. Make your house a home. Mother Mary's here. For your grandmother, for your wife, for your dog, hell, I don't mind. Prove your faith at discount price. Mother Mary's here. Bullet from the pulpit. Man down, shot dead. My faith hath made this hole that's leaking blood upon my chest. The preacher holds the smoking gun that burst upon my vain protest. I sought some holy answers. I thirsted for the truth. Your words have pulled the trigger. This body is the proof. Torn. I'm half in, half out. They told me once to doubt my doubts. But how many walls can fall before this house won't stand at all? Breathing freely. Chains that bind have left my mind. 1:11 p.m. You were just one away. One away from being a wishmaker. One away from inspiring delight. One away from promising magic. But you're the realization that my lunch break went over. You're the 4-hour countdown to closing time. You're the meeting that could have been an email. You're the opposite of special. You were just one away. Tower of Sand. I guess I got what I deserved. Palace tall, cracked to dust. Pensions that my pride has served, I alone have fallen to rust. Copper greened and lost its shine, bullet holes and bloody dimes. I was once a god of sin, but now my ashes dance on wind. The crushing burden of unfathomable wealth. You see that I am smart. You see that I am strong. This castle is my family's, and it is where I belong. I work and sweat and toil and cough. I sign the forms. I talk the talk. You cannot take this thing from me, for I have earned it. Yes, sirree. My father's Grandpa Joe once built this castle long ago, and I am smart, and I am strong. You peasants cannot say I'm wrong. A Stubbed Toe. You son of a bitch! You damn piece of shitty shit! Stomping in the dark. Crab. I am Crabby Crab, mincing steps from side to side. Get too close, snip snip. Pig. Misrepresented. George Orwell can kiss my ass. My fat, muddy ass. Moose. Oh, you think I'm cute? I will slaughter you right now. Bullwinkle murder. Seagull.
French fries and some trash. Feed me salty, crunchy treats. Yum yum from the beach.
House cat. Bow before me, filth. I am he who reigns supreme. My domain is all. Most of my haikus are silly, but this one is actually for real. Petals in the breeze, gather on the window pane. Spring is tender still. The Forge. A keyboard in my lap. A notepad by the lamp. A file in my phone. A pen upon a page. The only spark I need to build something real. Response to a 1-star review. The audacity, the gall, to treat the things of my soul as dross. Do you not know the hours, the years that I toiled to bring you this gift? And what have you offered? What is your contribution? An opinion and nothing more? A meager sacrifice of time and the price of a coffee to dash the works of my hand? Away with you. Begone. Remove yourself and your unfortunate taste. This pen will still kiss the page, carving symbols in ink that forge temples and shrines. For my words are my gifts, and I regard them as fine. Old Road. There's an old road across from the fitness center connecting to nothing on either side. It stretches diagonal between 2 crossing streets, busy with traffic lights and people's feet. The old road is dry and cracked, its paint faded in the sun. Shoes rarely touch it, and tires haven't known it in years. As I look, my heart hurts. because I too know how it feels to be forgotten once I've lost my convenience. Enough. Enough is a hole that will never be filled. Enough is a lover who doesn't kiss back. Enough is a desert without an oasis. Enough is a mountain whose peak is intact. Is it out of reach? It is out of reach. Too far. Shopping cart, wrong parking lot, blocks away from home. No one cares to bring you back, so you remain alone. Storm. Thunder claps, rain slaps, trees tussle, gutters sputter. Perhaps it is calming, because it matches me inside. Night. The breath above the water, the quiet from the roar, the coolness after fire, the breeze across the shore. Wrap me in the soft black so I can sigh and know the dark can make me feel at home. Summer rain. Let me breathe the shades of you, for on these nights the sun is sweet and lets me drink the air you leave, a desert with no dust, blessed by heaven's falling tears, still, pure, and clean. Beauty spotted from the freeway. The mountain slopes upward with a sprinkle of houses at the base of its curve. Along the surface, the trees and grass are rich and dark from recent rain. At the mountain's peak, misty clouds hover like a hat's brim. It's like a postcard, so what's it doing here? Inside, I'm reminded that God plays favorites with places. 1899. Gunslinger, with a chin of iron and lungs on fire in a shrinking frame. A serpent man with half-baked plans hissed sweetened dreams gone sour. A clash of worlds, a storm of fists, a setting sun, a life devoured. The serpent falls, retreats, and gone. The prairie marks a brand new grave. I am among them, unseen and omniscient, a broken vessel, mourning. Veneno Americano. He was my brother. A twitch of the thumb, the crack and a splash. Your body falls numb. After a party. Why am I lonely in rooms full of people? Why am I tired when this place is alive? There is laughing and drinking and stories unraveled, so why do I want it behind? Why is it hard to be seen, to be known? A want for sad songs on my car radio. I'm tired of this party. I want to go home. Let me drink deep from the dregs of alone. All and none. An unshaven man with leathery skin and a sleeping bag is on the sidewalk. I'm inside, wearing a tie and sipping cola from a chilly glass. A small palace of marble and granite where we've gathered to pat our backs. For lunch, a spiraled shaved cucumber with a blooming tuft of greens oiled in dressing. A glass plate, 2 forks, 2 knives, and a spoon on top for the chocolate mousse. Yes! Let me taste this decadence. Make luxury my friend. Pour it sweet upon my tongue. Shower me with plenty while that thing outside gets none. Ransom notes. Note number 1. Mr. and Mrs. Crenshaw, Timothy is safe, for now. If you want to see your son again, leave a briefcase filled with $1 million in the third booth of Dawn's Diner on Baker Street and College Avenue, September 12 at 6 p.m. You will find Timothy at Warrens Park the next morning at 10 a.m. Do not test me, or he will pay. Note number 2. Crenshaws. I have received your note. Do not play dumb. Timothy is with me. The amount for his return is now $2 million. Leave 2 briefcases with $1 million each behind the dumpster of Moe's Pizza Shack on 112 Main Street at 10 p.m. on September 15th. You'll find Timothy the next morning at Warren Park at 9 a.m. Do not fail, or Timothy gets it. Note number 3. Crenshaws. I see now why the child assured me his name is Antonio. I wish you and your family the best. Note number 4. Mr. and Mrs. Puso, I have been keeping your Antonio for days. He is safe, for now. $1 million. Leave it in a briefcase at the burger place on 56 Main Street, first booth on the right, 9 p.m., September 19th. You will find Antonio the next morning at Warren Park at 7 a.m. Do not be late, or Antonio pays. Note number 5. Mr. Puso, I offer you my humblest apologies. As you can tell, I've handwritten this note so I can express how embarrassed and mortified I am at the latest turn of events. I was trying to kidnap Timothy Crenshaw, son of Haznet CEO Gerald Crenshaw. Your son looks incredibly similar to him. When I sent you my ransom note, I had no idea that you were the famed Mario Puso of the Puso family. As you can see, your Antonio is safe and sound. I've left him this letter, along with a $100 gift card to Wheezy's Cheese's Party Palace. He would love to go there with you soon. You'll never hear from me again. Please call off your associates and let me retreat in peace. Forever grateful. A name was written here, then scratched out. Note number 6. Mr. Puso, don't bother sending your men after me again. I've moved to a different apartment in another state. You won't find me this time. I've enclosed a gift card for Smoothie's Sam Ice Cream Parlor. It should cover enough for you and Antonio as long as you each order a single scoop. This is my second offer. Please, let me go in peace. Haven't I paid enough, Puso? What more could you want from me? Find mercy in your heart. Note number 7. Mr. Puso, I have narrowly evaded your numerous attempts to end my life. This will be the last you hear of me. I have dodged your associates in Chicago, Los Angeles, New Orleans, and Miami. But my next destination will completely evade you. It's in your best interest to cease your pursuit. Seriously, come on, dude. I returned your son in one piece, with a gift card, 2 gift cards. I'm a victim too, you know. Your little brat wouldn't stop eating my cheesy crackers. They're my favorite snack. I only buy them on special occasions, but Antonio wouldn't keep his paws off them. Give it up. You'll never hear from me again. Pasta la vista, you Italian piece of... The rest of the note has been scribbled out. Note number 8. Puso, it's been 8 years since I left the United States to seek refuge from your watchful eyes. 8 years since I settled in the Japanese village of Inekadate, pursuing a peaceful life of rice farming. I met a local girl. We fell in love. Got married. She was my greatest joy, the light of my soul. While I was in the fields, your associates arrived at our home in search for me. I thought you had given up, but I was wrong. I heard her screams, but I got there too late. My poor Suki was dead, killed in cold blood. Killed by the order of Mario Puso. That's why only one of your associates has returned to you, with this letter and a gouged eye. I haven't been learning only rice farming in Inekadate, Puso. I've become a student of blades and shadows. You will see, soon enough. If you believe in a god, make your peace with them. Suki never got the chance. At the end of this note, there are Japanese characters that roughly translate into, I have become an angel of death. Note number 9. Now you know true pain, don't you, Puso? Losing someone you love more than life, seeing their eyes darkened. I never did that to Antonio, but you took away my Suki. Now you know my anguish. Your wife was heavily guarded, but your men were lacking. They relied on guns and dull senses, but I carry the discipline of generations of warriors. Those warriors took me in when I had no one left, and with their spirits guiding me, I painted your home with blood. You likely won't reach the end of this note before your head leaves your shoulders. I'm watching you now, just as you watched me years ago. Farewell, and welcome death. Note number 10. Antonio, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me, one day. I never meant to hurt you. I was a desperate man. It took me years in my new country to grow out of the pathetic wretch I once was. And through all of this, I have hurt you most of all. I am sorry. Your father played a dangerous game. He lived a life of fear and death, and his reward was the same. You should leave this life of his. Use your family's money and travel far away. Become honorable. You are the captain of your ship now, Antonio. Please, sail it to peaceful lands. I wish you all the happiness this world can offer. Farewell. Note number 11. Mr. Carson, I thought I'd make your goodbye note in the same fashion as your first note to my parents years ago. You were a fool to return to Japan. I found you there, and unlike my father, I took my revenge subtly. Poisoned by degrees is slow, but effective. I enjoyed watching you suffer. I've placed this note on your grave. I'm taking your advice. I'll carry on the Pusso family name in our ancestral Italian village. I'll be a merchant, find a wife. Your death will be my first and last. You played a dangerous game as my father did. Your reward is the same. You danced with the Pussos, but I chose the last song. Thanks for the cheesy crackers. Antonio. The end. This has been Love Letters to a House on Fire, Stories, Poems, and Ransom Notes, written by Aaron N. Hall, narrated by the author. Hey guys, it's Aaron N. Hall. Thank you so much for listening to this audiobook. If you like what you heard, please consider leaving a review on Amazon, Goodreads, Storygraph, or wherever you leave reviews. Independent authors like me depend on positive reviews and word of mouth to reach more people who would enjoy our books. Thank you so much.